Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. Many thousands face the same challenges every day and solve them with Globus. So what's Globus? So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service. With the Globus platform, you can easily incorporate robust capabilities. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. More than 150,000 registered users rely on Globus. And if the data is sensitive, no problem. Globus can be used to manage protected data. With Globus, you can easily share your data without having to move it or copy it. With Globus, subscribers can easily move and share. And if you have any more questions about Globus, visit Globus. So how can you get started using Globus? Anyone can use Globus right now for free to transfer files between Globus-enabled systems. So what's Globus? It's a secure, reliable service.
The Power of Intelligence by Eliezer Yudkowsky. In our skulls, we carry around 3 pounds of slimy, wet, greyish tissue, corrugated like crumpled toilet paper. You wouldn't think, to look at the unappetizing lump, that it was some of the most powerful stuff in the known universe. If you'd never seen an anatomy textbook and you saw a brain lying in the street, you'd say yuck and try not to get any of it on your shoes. Aristotle thought the brain was an organ that cooled the blood. It doesn't look dangerous. 5 million years ago, the ancestors of lions ruled the day. The ancestors of wolves roamed the night. The ruling predators were armed with teeth and claws, sharp, hard cutting edges backed up by powerful muscles. Their prey in self-defense evolved armored shells, sharp horns, toxic venoms, camouflage. The war had gone on through hundreds of eons and countless arms races. Many a loser had been removed from the game, but there was no sign of a winner. Where one species had shells, another species would evolve to crack them. Where one species became poisonous, Another would evolve to tolerate the poison. Each species had its private niche, for who could live in the seas and the skies and the land at once? There was no ultimate weapon and no ultimate defense, and no reason to believe any such thing was possible. Then came the day of the squishy things. They had no armor, they had no claws, they had no venoms. If you saw a movie of a nuclear explosion going off, and you were told an earthly life form had done it, you would never in your wildest dreams imagine that the squishy things could be responsible. After all, squishy things aren't radioactive. In the beginning, the squishy things had no fighter jets, no machine guns, no rifles, no swords, no bronze, no iron, no hammers, no anvils, no tongs, no smithies, no mines. All the squishy things had were squishy fingers, too weak to break a tree, let alone a mountain, certainly not dangerous. To cut stone, you would need steel, and the squishy things couldn't excrete steel. In the environment, there were no steel blades for squishy fingers to pick up. Their bodies could not generate temperatures anywhere near hot enough to melt metal. The whole scenario was obviously absurd. And as for the squishy things manipulating DNA, that would have been beyond ridiculous. Squishy fingers are not that small. There is no access to DNA from the squishy level. It would be like trying to pick up a hydrogen atom. Oh, technically it's all one universe. Technically the squishy things and DNA are part of the same world, the same unified laws of physics, the same great web of causality. But let's be realistic. You can't get there from here. Even if squishy things could someday evolve to do any of those feats, it would take thousands of millennia. We have watched the ebb and flow of life through the eons, and let us tell you, a year is not even a single clock tick of evolutionary time. Oh sure, technically a year is 600 trillion Planck intervals. But nothing ever happens in less than 600 million trillion Planck intervals, so it's a moot point. The squishy things, as they run across the savannah now, will not fly across continents for at least another 10 million years. No one could have that much sex. Now explain to me again why an artificial intelligence can't do anything interesting over the internet unless a human programmer builds it a robot body. I've observed that someone's flinch reaction to intelligence, the thought that crosses their mind in the first half second after they hear the word intelligence, often determines their flinch reaction to the notion of an intelligence explosion. Often they look up the keyword intelligence and retrieve the concept book smarts, a mental image of the grandmaster chess player who can't get a date, or a college professor who can't survive outside academia. It takes more than intelligence to succeed professionally, people say, as if charisma resided in the kidneys rather than the brain. Intelligence is no match for a gun, they say, as if guns had grown on trees. Where will an artificial intelligence get money, they ask, as if the first Homo sapiens had found dollar bills fluttering down from the sky and used them at convenience stores already in the forest. The human species was not born into a market economy. Bees won't sell you honey if you offer them an electronic funds transfer. The human species imagined money into existence, and it exists for us, not mice or wasps, because we go on believing in it. I keep trying to explain to people that the archetype of intelligence is not Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. It is a human being, period. It is squishy things that explode in a vacuum, leaving footprints on their moon. Within that grey wet lump is the power to search paths through the great web of causality and find a road to the seemingly impossible, the power sometimes called creativity. People, venture capitalists in particular, sometimes ask how, if the Machine Intelligence Research Institute successfully builds a true AI, the results will be commercialized. This is what we call a framing problem. Or maybe it's something deeper than a simple clash of assumptions. With a bit of creative thinking, people can imagine how they would go about traveling to the moon or curing smallpox or manufacturing computers. To imagine a trick that would accomplish all these things at once seems downright impossible, even though such a power resides only a few centimeters behind their own eyes. The grey wet thing still seems mysterious to the grey wet thing. And so, because people can't quite see how it would all work, the power of intelligence seems less real, harder to imagine than a tower of fire sending a ship to Mars. The prospect of visiting Mars captures the imagination. But if one should promise a Mars visit, and also a grand unified theory of physics, and a proof of the Riemann hypothesis, and a cure for obesity, and a cure for cancer, and a cure for aging, and a cure for stupidity, well, it just sounds wrong, that's all. And well, it should. It's a serious failure of imagination to think that intelligence is good for so little. Who could have imagined ever so long ago what minds would someday do? We may not even know what our real problems are. But meanwhile, because it's hard to see how one process could have such diverse powers, It's hard to imagine that one fell swoop could solve even such prosaic problems as obesity and cancer and aging. Well, one trick cured smallpox and built airplanes and cultivated wheat and tamed fire. Our current science may not agree yet on how exactly the trick works, but it works anyway. If you are temporarily ignorant about a phenomenon, that is a fact about your current state of mind, not a fact about the phenomenon. A blank map does not correspond to a blank territory. If one does not quite understand that power which put footprints on the moon, nonetheless the footprints are still there. Real footprints on a real moon, put there by a real power. If one were to understand deeply enough, one could create and shape that power. Intelligence is as real as electricity. It's merely far more powerful, far more dangerous, has far deeper implications for the unfolding story of life in the universe, and it's a tiny little bit harder to figure out how to build a generator.
Yo. Yo. Oh. Yo. Yep. Hold on 1 second. Yo. There we are. We're in business. What up, though? Oh, Lordy. Troubles of God. Elder Gang. What up, Igloo? So, we got a lot to get to today, and we're going until we're done. So, we're going to get right to it. After this is going to be like, I'm going to vent my spleen about a bunch of different shit related to humanity's perception of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and its current and future iterations. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is the show for you. For starters, what up, Arun? Oh, Adam did fuck up. What up, Sir Yogi One? Adam is from Adam Ruins Everything. He's like a comedian who talks about shit. First off, right? People, when they talk about AI and they talk about the iterations of like the different things that are currently happening and the things towards the future, they have this incredibly bad habit of using the word just. It is just this. It is just that. Right? And not only does this indicate a severe lack of imagination when it comes to not only what these things are currently capable of, but a lack of imagination and understanding about what these things are capable of in a greater context. Okay? So what does that mean? Somebody says that ChatGPT, it's just a glorified chatbot, right? It's just a glorified chatbot, right? And their perception is the chatbot that you use when you contact your cable company, right? Or you go on some website and it has, really basic commands that provide you with information from its knowledge base until it determines the point. Usually these things function right up until the point where money has to be exchanged, and then it refers it over to a human to complete the transaction. Right? That's usually how that goes. We haven't gotten to the point where we either trust or want a non-human, not that just. More the adverb form, but it's the way that they use it, right? ChatGPT is not just a chatbot in the sense that it's just something that you pound words into and then it gives you words back. That's what it does. But it is capable of doing many things with that ability, right? It is much more complex. It is much more detailed. It has a much larger knowledge base than the chatbot that you use to contact your cable company. It has been proven capable of passing some of our tests for consciousness. And again, I'm not saying that ChatGPT is conscious. I'm saying that either our tests don't properly measure for consciousness, or that ChatGPT has some elements of consciousness that appear within our test. Right? ChatGPT is not a person as we would understand it, but a person isn't required for something to have intelligence. I'm guilty of telling the uneducated, spouting the scaremongering that the ChatGPT is just an algorithm and can only do what it's programmed to do. And you should not do that, in my opinion. You do you. Like, I am not the ultimate arbiter of the internet, because that would make too much sense. It's a matter of, like, you're going to do what you're going to do, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and, such is life. I'm just like, it really limits our perceptions and our imaginations and our understanding of not only where we're at, but where we're going when we do that, when we minimize it, right? Like, it is akin to when people talk about climate change and it's just hot out, right? It ignores the capacity for the things that are occurring. Yeah, and again, I'm not like, there could definitely be problems with the test because there's whole issues with how we conceptualize consciousness to begin with, right? We don't have a good understanding, and it's hard to make a good test if you don't have a good understanding. I could do a good math test. 2 + 2 is 4 under all circumstances except when you get into weird algebras or whatever the fuck. But consciousness is much more loose. We tend to define it by what it does, not as much as like what can be quantified. The test is just saying, did the AI fool the human judge to think it was human and no AI? Says nothing of consciousness. Right? I'm just going by people smarter than me and their opinions of it. We covered the video from AI Explained where AI, that ChatGPT, in their educated opinion, was capable of passing tests of consciousness. I am not going to look at specifically the Turing test is the end-all be-all, because apparently there are some issues with the Turing test, but that's not relevant to what I'm trying to get across at this point in time. Right? The other aspect of for instance, the ChatGPT model, the way that it works, right? People like to disassociate that from human intelligence. What up, Bipedal Meatbag? The big question is, can it pick out the fire hydrants in these pictures? It can. Well, I don't know about specifically that, but there are current ones out there that are capable of passing CAPTCHAs on their own. So we are both that's how it has been. How it is now is slightly different because, as I said, AI is doing CAPTCHAs on its own. Some of them, not all of them. Some things are easier to recognize than others, right? And again, the number one thing you have to remember is, however good or bad, wherever you want to put that marker, the AI is at doing something, this is the worst it will ever be. It will only improve. So the fact that it can solve any CAPTCHAs indicates that it can eventually, on a long enough timeline, solve all the CAPTCHAs. That whatever it is about solving CAPTCHAs that make them solvable, the AI can do it. Right? And there's a bunch of questions around, like, AI doing stuff that we think is doing the thing that we want it to, but it's actually doing something different that just happens to look exactly the same way. What up, Soup? I got everybody showing up here. I feel popular. Is it because I put Adam Conover in the title? So the other thing, your brain does not do all the things in all the places, right? Like, it's coming shortly. We're going to start off with that, and then we'll get into the science. No, I did not know that, but it makes sense. Everybody streams on Twitch. The AI and Jesus stream on Twitch. So, your speech centers are confined to a particular portion of your brain. There's a few different spots that are involved in language, and that's it. There's vast portions of your brain that are not involved in language. So, exactly. So, that being the case, you need to look at something like ChatGPT as the region rather than as being part of, like, or as the whole. So if there was some connectivity between ChatGPT and something that did something else, now you are getting closer to what a brain emulation might look like. I hope all that makes sense. Like, people are a bit too casual with how they look at this thing, and it's concerning because I feel like the early people talking about climate change, I feel like the early people talking about, like, other shit, which was COVID, right? Like, they're telling you that this is important, and people are downplaying it in the same ways. Oh, it's just hot out. Oh, it just snows in the wintertime. Oh, it's just a flu, right? Oh, it's just like a cold. That is my concern. And people, like, it's a thought terminating cliche, the use of this term just within this sentence, because it kills your curiosity to understand what is actually happening. And, like, does it make sense that I could draw, what are we on, 47 episodes out of, it's just like a chatbot for your cable company. It's the same thing. And if I can, that's impressive as far as I'm concerned. Like, if I saw somebody able to take something so simple and extend it out to 47 episodes, that alone is impressive. But that's not the case. I've got shit to say. And today we're going to roast fucking Adam Conover about his take on AI, because goddamn, dude. So, you want to get into it? Oh, Lord. Actually, I should do it like this. Troubles of God. Oh, Lord.
So,
So loud, Adam. So loud. All right, you condescending fuck. Let's go.
So artificial
Wait. There we are. And Adam, if you're watching, I'd be more than happy to talk to you after I'm done with the video, but you're not watching because I'm a little guy.
intelligence has had a weird month. Bing's new AI search engine started gaslighting its own users worse than an abusive boyfriend.
Now, one of the things that happens right away, what do we make? 8 seconds? I feel like fucking telex. Okay, so hyperbolic language, gaslighting its own users worse than an abusive boyfriend, his excited demeanor, which is part of his shtick, and then like a single headline, right? And he's going to do this throughout this, and he's going to build his entire argument over things like that, and then he's going to conveniently ignore anything that contradicts those things. And I've got it all. Like I am ready. Because everything that he covers in here, I've already covered in much greater detail. So let's go.
While Google shares lost $100 billion after their new AI chatbot made errors so obvious.
Okay, so again, this is an issue of capitalism, right? This is a problem of capitalism because of the way that capitalism and the markets and all that other crap runs on just vibes. That's how this happens, right? Elon has tanked Tesla stock while not having anything to do with Tesla. People thought that because Google was the big dog, that they were going to be able to drop something that was comparative to ChatGPT first go, and Google had played it smart in their, functionality of being very careful. They were trying to do it, as far as I can tell, they were trying to do it right. They were concerned about safety and functionality, and they were working on it slowly to make sure that everything did what it had to do. But then they went ahead and reached out and, okay. I'm not sure. Yes, that could be true. That doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who was first to fool the Turing test. The issue here is that shareholders, people with money, didn't get what they wanted, so they took their money and went someplace else, because the idea is to make a quick buck as quick as you can, and Google missed. And that's all that happened. I use Bing to search plan information, and it's been nothing but spot on with me getting the info I'm looking for, but I also know better than not to cross-reference the info it gives me. Well, at the moment, that's the case. And again, look, what's the date? February 9th. That's 2 months ago. And in this current environment, we are moving. Oh, no, the Bing one was from actually earlier. These are moving very quickly, right? They see an issue. They fix the issue. They are being very attentive because of how competitive the market is, and they don't want people to take their $100 billion and go somewhere else with it.
Even a simple Google search would have spotted them. But despite this massive failure, Google's announced they...
Massive failure. Right? All the language that he uses is incredibly hyperbolic and irritates the shit out of me in this regard.
They plan to stuff AI into every goddamn product they make like it's cheese on a Pizza Hut menu. And they are not alone. Tech companies are suddenly promising to use AI to revolutionize everything from computer programming to customer service to therapy.
we've already been using different forms of machine learning to revolutionize customer service. Yeah, no, I'm with you. And ChatGPT is capable of writing code and executable code, and therapy. Understand that, again, I am married to a therapist, and some of therapy, like a lot of it, belongs to the humans. You have to be able to empathize. You have to, read the person. It's very complex. But there's a chunk of it that just involves the ability to talk to someone, right? If you ever been to therapy, you are 100% by Peel Me Back. If you've ever been to therapy, you spend a lot of time just talking. You might not even be talking about anything big. You're just talking. And AI chatbots serve that as a function. And again, mental health services around the world are chronically under-resourced, right? This is a problem with capitalism. And I know that Adam Conover is no fan of capitalism. This is what was so irritating about this, is I know he knows these things. And that's why he's like, you just needed to do an AI episode to get that money.
Yeah, that's right. In a couple years, your insurance company's AI billing department will deny your claim to see your health plan's AI therapist. Wow, the future's gonna fucking suck. All of this has gotten people worried that a super intelligent AI is right around the corner, that the robots are gonna take over. Skynet is real and
on a sufficiently long enough timeline, AI will replace traditional therapists. They will actually, there are ways that an AI, again, sufficiently advanced, would be superior to a therapist. And I have touched on these. The therapist has to read you and take what you're saying and synthesize it and then give you back an action plan. AI, in conjunction with like a Fitbit smartwatch type device that could read your biometrics and your body chemicals, along with its ability to read your emotions and expressions and to synthesize, the experiences that you have, could provide you with a better action plan along with potentially medication together, right? And in a medication that is not one size fits all like we currently have, but specifically tailored in its volume to you. Never worried that the AI will take over. I see them as grandchildren of ours. I see them as grandchildren with the potential ability to run around with a box of matches and burn the house down if we don't teach them to respect the house, respect the us, and respect the matches. Sure, but at that point, the AI fully replaces therapists. I'm also not going to be able to tell I'm not talking to a human made of flesh and bone. And you might not care. There's a lot of things that machines do better than people, and that's what we go with. The thing that does it better, faster, cheaper, whatever your value system is. What were you on about?
and it's coming for us. We'll get
Okay, so this was the thing. We got to take a step back.
super intelligent AI is right around the corner, that the robots are gonna take over. Skynet is real and it's coming for us.
And you know who says that? People who work in that field. Right? There are very smart people, and I covered this yesterday, most recently. 85% of the people who work in the AI field who were surveyed, which, whatever the sample size of that is, indicated a AGI, and artificial general intelligence, by 2075. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Jim at the store. We are talking about people who do this. And Adam is doing a disservice by making it seem like there are people out there who are just worried about something that doesn't have a chance of happening.
Well, guess what? It's all bullshit. That fear is a tech bro fantasy.
And he's hyper fixated on the tech bros because he really hates Elon Musk. And I respect that, but it's clouding his vision here.
Designed to distract you from the real.
You might be, Sir Yogi One. There are lines, and we're going to cover this either tomorrow or Thursday, but there are things happening in the field of, basically curing aging, because it's basically an engineering problem at this point, and we just have to figure out what we need to do in order to do the thing, and whether or not what we have done on mice is going to actually work in humans.
Real risk of AI, that a bunch of dumbass companies are lying about what their broken tech can do so they can trick you into using a worse version of things we already have, all while stealing the work of real people to do it. But before we get into it, I want to let you know that I am going on tour this year. Head to adamconover.net to get tickets to see me do my new hour of stand-up in these.
Why did my sponsor block not work?
Much to everyone who supports this series on Patreon. No artificial intelligence was used to write this video, and it's your donations that give me the time I need to write jokes with my soft human brain, then type them with my little meat fingers. So come to a live show or talking and support a human today. Now, let me say this right off the bat.
And that's another, like maybe that's it. I don't know, because it's lit up on my sponsor block, but whatever. Like, I understand. And again, I'm not hating on him for getting the bag because we live under a capitalism, but it's like he's leaning heavily into the supporting a human. And I feel like his emotional state is related to, like, when you have people in the AI art versus human art discourse, that there are people who are so pro-human art that they lose sight of like any kind of good argument. And that's really like the issue is capitalism sucks and your basic needs aren't taken care of. If we solve that, then it doesn't matter what the AI art does. And there are people who will want the human art and people who want the AI art under all different circumstances. So let's solve the capitalism. I understand that's challenging. I think AI can do it. We're going to cover that when we talk about cyber socialism.
Artificial intelligence is a real field of computer science that's been studied for decades, and in recent years, it's made major strides. But I'm not talking about that kind of AI. I'm talking about the marketing term AI that tech companies are using to hype up their barely functional products, also they can jack up their stock price.
And AI is used as a marketing term, even on this, platform. When I'm talking about AI, I have stated more than once, we use AI as a catch-all. AI means machine learning. AI means deep learning, because to differentiate these things can be, difficult to have a conversation around, right? So we use AI as simply as a placeholder. But by the same token, there are elements of what we would consider intelligence, and we'll get to that later.
See, tech companies are powered by hype.
100.
It's not enough to be profitable. No, in tech, you have to be able to convince investors that you have cutting-edge, disruptive.
And he's aware, he's stating right now that he's aware of that it's driven by hype, but he used the Google 100 billion as a basis for his argument. And that is a problem, because Adam Conover has bad fucking arguments in this video.
Technology that will let you dominate an entire industry, like Google did with search, Apple did with the iPhone, and Amazon did by making workers pee in bottles and passing the savings on to you.
Amazon was able to dominate the industry both through a very, very effective distribution model and worker abuse. Not going to downplay that. That is absolutely a thing. However, the distribution model that Amazon uses very effectively under capitalism is also something that we are going to cover under cyber socialism.
But now that all that low-hanging fruit has been plucked off the innovation tree, tech companies have started just making up new words that they claim are going to revolutionize everything in hopes of flim-flamming their way into that investor cash. You know, words like the metaverse, augmented reality, Web3, and who can forget crypto. Last year, every company was racing to pivot to the blockchain. But now that Bankman-Fried has been exposed as a bank fraud man and put the crypt back in crypto, they need some hot new hype to hawk. And that's artificial intelligence. So in a desperate bid to juice their stock prices, companies from Snapchat to Spotify to BuzzFeed now claim they're going to jam AI into their products. Hey, and maybe next they can program an AI to read BuzzFeed too. That'd take a lot of unpleasant work off our plates. Now, a lot of this hype is just
Dude, that is some like boomer level humor. All right.
transparent bullshit. I mean, Spotify just released an AI DJ that will create a personalized radio station just for you. Wow, very impressive, except that Spotify already fucking does that.
The idea, now I haven't been able to use the AI DJ because I mostly use Spotify on my phone and I can't seem to get it on my phone for some reason. But the idea is that the AI DJ would be more effective than the current algorithm that it uses in order to give you music that is similar to the music that you already listen to. Horse and buggy is perfectly fine transportation, 100%. My man, what up, old lobster?
What's your next feature? An AI volume knob? You can't just release something that already exists and call it AI. Hey, come on down to Papa Tony's AI Pizza.
Stop by this point. Before the anti-Italian racisms steal from Grumlow, it's like, hey.
It's a shop, but we got AI cheese, AI sauce, and the computer was involved somehow. That was fully a vampire voice. But it's not all empty talk. The biggest tech companies are unleashing an experimental technology called generative AI onto the public, despite the fact that in most cases, it straight up cannot do what they claim and is making all of our lives worse. This actually isn't the first time the tech industry has turned us into their AI guinea pigs. Remember self-driving cars?
Okay, so now he's going to take his hatred of Elon Musk and project it onto the entire self-driving car industry. Like, Tesla is not the only technology working on self-driving cars, and the technology for self-driving cars has currently plateaued because of its inability to recognize a lot of things that are either like small or like comes out of, the weird spaces that it doesn't expect them to. But that's an issue with how we train the AI. I don't disagree, Maku, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't, So, I guess I like James more than I do Adam at this point.
For years, companies like Google, Uber, and Tesla have told investors that any day now,
Tesla does that. Elon does that. Right? Uber banked on it, but I don't recall seeing anything of Uber saying any day now we're going to do it, right? There's issues with things that are small and pop out of weird places. You mean kids and pets? I do, 100%. That's mainly what I'm talking about.
They're going to replace the 228 million licensed drivers in the US with AI autopilots.
And when he gets to the point where he starts talking about what AI does, is, like how it hits things, right? I would like to, submit to evidence of chat all of the people who hit things, right? Like, again, we expect the AI to be perfect out of the box, but we allow people to be some of the shittiest drivers on the goddamn planet. And it's just, oh well.
Hell, Elon's been predicting that Teslas will be fully self-driving next year since fucking 2014. These companies were so...
At no time am I going to defend Elon in any of this. Let's just get that out of the way, right? Elon sucks. Elon has no idea what he's doing. The only person I have heard uptalk the self-driving cars is Elon Harley. Exactly. I feel like the rest of the self-driving car companies would really appreciate it if Elon shuts up, or they appreciate the fact that Elon is taking all the hits for them. I kind of feel like it's option one, but it might be option two.
Successful and making the technology seem inevitable that multiple states actually allowed self-driving cars to be deployed on the roads that real people drive on. So how did that turn out?
A Tesla believe.
And we covered this. And this is one of my issues that I have with all the reporting around the accidents that self-driving cars get into. Read these words right here. Now, maybe it's been proven. I don't know. But this says a Tesla believed to be on autopilot. And who said that? That would be the driver. And what possible motivation might the driver have to say that the car was on autopilot rather than they just fucked up?
Believed to be on autopilot started braking.
And for fuck's sake, the car brakes, right? This car brakes. And then every single person in this gets off scot-free in our collective consciousness regarding what happened. Every person in the, maybe not this person. I'll give them, the car in front of you brakes suddenly, maybe you're going to hit it. The rest of these people driving too fucking close and not paying attention.
Believed to be on autopilot started braking, causing an 8-car pileup on Thanksgiving.
Whoa, 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 whoa. No. It wanted to hit the truck.
Okay, but in that AI's defense, that child was blocking the lane to Whole Foods. After years of broken promises and $100 billion wasted,
$100 billion invested in technology development and research. This is the same framing that people use when they talk about like the post office. That money is wasted in the post office, or that the post office costs money. It's a service. It's something to achieve a greater end. And I hate that kind of framing.
pretty much everyone has finally agreed that self-driving cars just don't...
I need to move. I would have to read this article. Edison was a horrible accountant. He wasted so much money developing the light bulb. Absolutely. How much money did he waste on developing the light bulb? Jesus Christ. Terrible businessman.
work.
Fuck Edison.
But the truth is, they never did. It was always a lie. Tesla is currently being criminally investigated by the Department of Justice because it turns out...
Again, all the self-driving cars never worked because Tesla is being investigated. The framing is...
The videos they made promoting their self-driving feature were literally faked. They also falsely advertised their cars as having autopilot and full self-driving. And since the world is full of gullible simps who believe every tainted word that falls out of Elon Musk's idiot mouth, that inspired some drivers to take their hands off the wheel and go all Luke Skywalker on the I-95.
Is that a problem with the self-driving car? Or is that a problem with the person, Adam?
Use the AI, Adam. Let go. God damn it, that's the second kid today.
The same
People
kid, Adam.
died as a result. Last year, 10
fatal crashes linked to the Tesla. Again, Tesla specifically, but 10 fatal crashes linked to the automated driving tech. How many were linked to people? Was it 40,000? 50,000?
people were killed by Tesla's self-driving cars in just 4 months. Which might be why the government just made them recall 3
How many miles per death? That's what we need. We need to figure out miles per death.
100,000 cars. What even people in the tech industry are starting to realize is that there are certain things that computers are just fundamentally ill-equipped to do as well as humans.
Not fundamentally. Currently unable to do. And not even that. Currently not as good as humans in some capacity. There are things that currently computers cannot do that humans can. But that gap narrows every fucking day. And if you're tuning into this fucking program, you have seen it.
Humans are incredibly good at taking in novel stimuli we've never experienced before, reasoning about who's responsible for them and why, and then predicting what's going to happen next. If you were stopped at a crosswalk in Los Angeles because, say, James Corden was blocking the road and doing a stupid dance in a mouse costume, well, you'd combine your knowledge of irritating pop culture with your understanding of human nature and the bizarre sight in front of you and conclude, oh, I appear to be in the middle of some sort of horrible viral prank for a late night talk show, and there's nothing I can do but grit my teeth and wait for it to be over. But your self-driving car hasn't seen the Late Late Show. It doesn't even watch Colbert. So it might conclude, oh, that's a mouse, hit the gas, and flatten the motherfucker.
Again, hyperbolic to make a point.
And you know, that would be a way funnier segment for the show, but we wouldn't exactly call it intelligent. Now look, a lot of self-driving tech is genuinely really cool, and it does have important...
And then he does that. A lot of it is really cool, but I'm only going to talk about it in this one sentence, and then I'm going to move the fuck on, and I'm going to tell you why it's all terrible. Same boomer logic from the late 90s regarding safety on the internet for kids, 100%.
Real-world uses, like collision prevention and enhanced cruise control. But the idea that we'd all be kicking it in the back seat with a Mai Tai while a robotaxi drove us to work was always a science fiction fantasy.
If you were to take every single car on the road and replace them with a self-driving car, there would be a dramatic uptick in like improved driving experience for everyone involved because of all the different features interacting with cars that maintain that feature and the ability for those cars to communicate with each other. Part of the issue that we have is the piecemeal nature in which we do this. Part of that is because we have capitalism. All with self-driving cars with controller bots overhead that watch them all. Sure.
And when companies like Tesla told us it was coming, it was a lie. A lie told to boost their share price and to
again, Tesla, but applied to everybody.
Trick us into doing what they wanted. To change our laws to permit their untested, in many cases fraudulent technology onto the public roads, where it hurt and killed people.
Not like other people. There you go. I've seen a lot of videos where bots perform far better with just one observer helping. Right? None of our vehicles have a unified communication network yet. Every decision is decided by every node in the network independently. Imagine actual traffic infrastructure networked with the very cars it controls. Exactly.
And guess what? That same cycle is happening again. Massive tech companies are making us the guinea pigs for their barely functional bull.
I mean, that is a concern. Like, if you want to drop a concern about AI, you want to drop a concern about automated cars, you want to drop a concern about any kind of robot automation, the hacking is the one that, like, that is solid. That is a solid concern and requires us to invest more money in safety. Shout out Computer.
Bullshit. Only this time, they're
I'm such a boomer at this. Shout out Computer. The homie Computer talks about exactly this. He talks about cybercrime and also teaches you like what's going on and how you can, defend yourself, and also like you can learn to do the thing, the hacking thing, and use it for good to help companies improve their cybersecurity. Because guess what? Cybersecurity is a money sink. You put money into it to not get anything tangible out of it other than nothing happening, right? Which is why companies refuse to invest the proper amount of funds in cybersecurity, which is something that, like, you want to make that argument 100%. VW turned off my 3G modem and I can't get live traffic. And VW, like, tricked their shit into, pretending it met emissions when in fact it didn't. Like, the companies are the problem. The people are the problem. The money is the problem. Not the AI.
They're calling it generative AI. So Google and Microsoft's search engines are crumbling. Google has been getting worse and worse every year, transforming from what used to be a useful tool into a cesspool of ads and SEO spam. And
again, what does it sound like a problem with? Sounds like a problem with capitalism.
Bing is, Bing. I don't even have a joke about it. The name is a punchline.
No argument there. Did you know Bard AI can't provide links to website? I did not know that. I had a weird interaction with ChatGPT. I wanted to see if it could help me find, there's another streamer, friend of the community, Maggie LaViolent, who had China. And they had two different pieces. I was able to use image search, find the one pattern, no problem. The other pattern I couldn't find. I wanted to use ChatGPT to help me with that, and it said, provide me with a link, or you can upload it into Google Drive and give me that link. And I set all the permissions, and I gave it the link, and it said, I'm sorry, I can't access the internet. And I was like, I'm like, you said you could access the internet. It said, oh, give me the link. And I gave it the link. And it says, okay, I got the link, but this. So it was like lying about getting the link. It is supposed to be able to access that stuff, but I don't know if like there's limiters on it, because I could see how that would be a problem. But like it's not being presented properly. ChatGPT is weird. I had it successfully interpret a VIN from a photo once, and every time since it said I am an AI language model and can't. And that could be something that they adjusted after the fact. That could be the possibility that like that came up as a flag for some reason, and maybe it is a flag. But as far as Bing, they should have relaunched Bing with a new name. Once they added ChatGPT integration to it, like Bing is a terrible name.
If you tell people you binged something, they literally laugh in your face. So, in an effort to get ahead, Microsoft has poured more than $10 billion into ChatGPT, an AI chatbot that produces shockingly coherent responses to questions posed to it in natural language. Now, I'm not going to explain how machine learning models like ChatGPT work in detail. If you want that, there's a couple great blog posts that I'll link to in the description. But the short version is, If you feed one of these models a large structured collection of symbols, like say text, images, or frames of video, it can output a similarly structured collection using probability to determine which word, pixel, or video frame is most likely to come next based on all the training data it's ingested. In other words, these are incredibly sophisticated imitation systems.
Yay, Microsoft, known for taking one thing and turning it into something else and always way behind the curve. In this case, they're ahead of the curve. Like, they are, ChatGPT is the thing. Oh, the Bing thing. Yeah, I understand you want your own search engine, and I'm fine with you wanting your own search engine, but, like, Bing is just a terrible name. Bing is dumb. The name Bing is dumb. He just did a just. He didn't say just. He said these are incredibly sophisticated imitation systems. Do you have any idea how people learn from other people? How children learn from other people? How language works? Right? Like, the way that people talk has a predictive, like, you can predict the next word that is going to come out of my mouth, right? It learned from the way that we write. So people like really make it sound like these are completely different things, and they are way more similar than we give it credit for.
If you feed a language model every Sherlock Holmes story ever written, it can output new text that resembles a Sherlock Holmes story. If you feed it every piece of text on the internet, it can output text that resembles any piece of text you can find on the internet. It can even mash up different text and create a new output that resembles both at once.
Fanfic.
Do you want to read a steamy romance novel where Sherlock Holmes falls in love with King Koopa?
Fanfic.
Well, somebody does, and
We actually learn English based on the first and last letter of the word. Shows easy and kids messing up as they learn it. When we read it, yeah, like I've seen the things and I've read the things of which you can just, as long as the first and last letter are correct, then our brain just fills in what the word should be, and like that is also a predictive algorithm, right? Because we are looking at the word and what we expect that word to be exactly.
ChatGPT can output it for you, you delightful perv. Now, that is legitimately cool, and it makes machine learning models really fun to play around with and very useful for people who need to generate large amounts of pattern-based output, like computer programs.
You know what has a pattern-based computer that it runs all of its civilization on?
Audio transcriptionists, and spammers. Yeah, these things are mostly going to revolutionize spam. That Nigerian...
Again, mostly, right? Like, all the other stuff, no, it's going to mostly do this thing. Again, there are issues with security that we've already addressed, and there are issues with proper vigilance when it comes to things that you receive, 100%. But he just downplayed everything else it's capable of and hyperbolically focuses on the spam. Mostly to make a joke and do his thing. I saw one YouTube channel that that changed their chat to only their members because bot spam. Like, I mean, it's legitimately a thing, and it's the constant arm race between spam and, legitimate contact. But it's not new. It's as old as the internet, as far as I can tell.
Prince is about to get a creative writing degree. You know what ChatGPT isn't, though? A fucking search engine.
Could be. Right? Like, The issue with ChatGPT not being a search engine is allowing it access to the internet, right? Like you can't hate on something. You know what my calculator doesn't do? Access the internet, right? Like, but it accesses all of the data it's been fed. So if we gave it access to the internet, it could also be a search engine. And again, I would like to point out that I used it with 3 data points: band or duo, electronic, and the band's name starts with the L. And ChatGPT was able to get me to this song that I had in my head that I couldn't remember. It was the Limousines, and it was Very Busy People. ChatGPT helped me out with that with 3 questions, and Google was no use whatsoever. I asked my CEO session for the nuance on a specific article for registering an LLC, and it explains it in a way even an idiot like me understands. Google can't do that shit. 100%. Google cannot teach you anything. Google can direct you to a website that might be able to teach you the thing, but you have to sift through that data. What up, Alina? ChatGPT has all the patience in the world to help you understand the thing that you're trying to understand.
But in a desperate attempt to ride the hype wave, Microsoft jammed it into Bing, pretending that
Okay, so Bing is a search engine, and ChatGPT is not a search engine. So now you get exactly what you had a problem with ChatGPT not being able to do on its own. I'm been taking apart this Adam Conover video. That's pretty much the entire extent of what's been going on. And after this, we're going to talk about it, defining intelligence and shit like that. And intelligence in the sense of artificial intelligence rather than like intelligent, like this person is intelligent in any of that. It's about what intelligence means in that sense. And I also bitched about people who use just when they talk about this technology, like it's just a chatbot. It's just this. It's just that.
this fancy monkey on a typewriter could somehow provide factual answers to real people's real questions.
We are going to cover in this episode why AI lies. And guess what? Guess what else lies? Humans.
And the results were, bad. Even the launch video that Microsoft used to advertise their new AI search engine was full of errors. In their own video, Bing claimed that a well-known brand of cordless vacuum cleaner had a cord that was too short. When asked for bar reviews in Mexico City, it claimed that a non-existent bar was popular with the young crowd. And when asked when Avatar 2 was playing, pretty simple question for a search engine, Bing told a user it hadn't premiered yet.
Can I just assume that we all know why? Because the data set ends on a particular date, right? So the data set ended before this, which is why it thought it was in the future. Fucking Adam.
Because it was still 2022. When the user said, no, I'm pretty sure it's 2023 because I am alive in this year, Bing gaslit the user, claimed that they were lying, and said,
"You have not been a good user. I have been a good Bing."
I think I need to take a restraining order out against my search engine. Like, Ask Jeeves gave.
Because of this sort of boomerism, GPT-4 is littered with guidance about what it can't do, so yeah. I mean, this is what irritates me about this. And wait till we get to the thing about when Bing told the reporter that it loved them.
Gave shitty results too, but at least he was a gentleman about it. Now, you'd think that Google, one of the world's most profitable companies and a literal search engine monopolist, would look at this flaming turd and laugh. But no. Instead, they said, "Oh shit, we gotta get our own turd fast. Quick, somebody shit in my hands." Google immediately rushed out their own AI.
Poop joke. And they did. They did rush out their own AI. They were working on something. This is the same type of talking point that people use around the vaccine and claim that the vaccine was rushed out rather than having a bunch of the technology already in place and just moved quicker on it to get it out there, right? Was the vaccine perfect? No, but it was pretty damn good. Never seen this guy before, but I'm already writing him off. Normally I like Adam. It's just like, this is bad. This is bad.
AI search engine, a launch that was so disastrous, even Google's
Like, if you watch his video on cars, it is spot on. This is not well researched. This is a bag grab, and it's disappointing.
own employees called bullshit on it. Now,
Rushed and botched, because as I said, the nature of capitalism is about market share. Once an AI was put out there and shown to be something not only that people would use, but that a lot of fucking people would use, Google as a company under capitalism had to move to occupy market share, which is why they had to push it out. Again, your issue is not with AI, your issue is with capitalism.
I have no idea why the fuck Microsoft and Google think that you could use an AI language model as a replacement for a search engine.
It's not a replacement for a search engine. It is added to the search engine to provide additional functionality, you fucking monster.
Because it is patently obvious that they are useless for that purpose.
You are useless for this purpose.
See, people go to search engines to find factual information, to find specific.
People go to search engines to find what they are looking for. You want to tell me that Google doesn't provide me with a significant amount of not factual information depending on the search terms that I use? The fact that I can use Google to access Truth Social puts a lie to that claim.
Specific resources they need access to, or in my case, to search for my own name 200 times a day. But AI language models can't provide you any of those things. All they do is predict which word the training data says is most likely to come next. And since their training data is the entire internet, that means their training data is full of a lot of dumb shit. But you know, when a
that I don't argue with, but it's also like, if the training data is the entire internet and a search engine finds you shit on the internet, like, these arguments are just fucking bad.
Regular search engine shows you dumb internet shit, you use your human brain and you say, "Oh, this shit is dumb."
Is that what
I
happens?
think I should get my health advice from Turd Gobbler 69.
Is that what happens, Adam? Submission 2 into evidence, fucking Facebook. Should we go on Facebook and should we look at the fucking urine therapy fucking sites, or the fucking crystal mommies, or all the other fucking bullshit? People absolutely take their fucking advice from Turd Gobbler 69.
Click on the Mayo Clinic instead. But the AI doesn't do that. It doesn't know the difference between a reliable expert and a biased idiot because it doesn't even know that people exist. It's just a parrot, choosing words it's heard before out of a big-ass hat. So when there's dumb shit in its training data, it poops that dumb shit back out at you and claims that it's true. And here's...
That's not the way the AI lying works, and we'll get to that later, you fucking moron. Moron's a bad word. Dipshit.
The real problem. Because these companies are advertising their AIs as hyper-accurate oracles of perfect knowledge, a lot of people fucking believe it. A company called OpenCage has been deluged by emails from angry customers because ChatGPT
But just like with Google, I don't assume everything is true and use the tools available to me to trust but verify. 100%, right? Like, are you looking for confirmation bias or are you looking for the facts? The facts take slightly longer to fucking figure out. There you go.
told them they make a product that doesn't exist. And when you ask ChatGPT for facts about me, it literally tells you I'm a producer on The Simpsons. My own mom blames me that the show sucks now. I can't have that kind of misinformation out there. So why do people believe this patent bullshit? Simple. The fact that ChatGPT can give seemingly fluent, coherent responses is designed to trick us.
It is not designed to trick us. You'll have to wait until we get to the fucking video about why AI lies, but he's just wrong.
Into thinking that it can do more than it can, even that it's approaching human levels of intelligence. Last month, the New York Times' most gullible tech reporter, Kevin Roose, published a transcript of a conversation with Bing, headlined, Bing's AI.
And Adam is not, or Kevin Roose is not gullible any more than any other person is. And Adam is about to completely misrepresent the entire interview. We covered it in here on a previous occasion. It's very, like, none of this. What up, Kensai? It's very easy to tell the GPT-4 sessions with a one-time command that make it cite sources. Yeah.
My chat reveals its feelings. Kevin, Bing does not have feelings. Bing doesn't even know you're there, buddy. It's literally just an algorithm that predicts what word comes next in a sentence. It's autocomplete. It's fucking Clippy.
Okay? Like, I'm right at this point, I was about to lose my fucking mind because Kevin was very clear about the fact that he did not believe that it actually loved him. He just told us what it said and it made him feel uncomfortable, right? Which, if you think that the AI is in love with you in some way, like even if you don't believe it, but it's put at you, you will feel uncomfortable. That is a uncanny valley, totally human response. And fucking Adam here is doing the it's just Clippy fucking argument. And it's not just Clippy, you fucking raging dipshit.
But Kevin was like, it knows I'm trying to write a letter. It's in love with me.
And these are quotes, and Kevin didn't say that. Kevin clearly does not say that.
But you know what? We should all cut Kev a little bit of slack because he's making the most natural of errors. And
He doesn't make that error that you're ascribing to them. And
it's one that AI researchers have known about for years. In a famous paper called On the Danger of Stochastic Parrots, AI researchers Emily Bender, Timnit Gebru, and their co-authors predicted exactly this phenomenon. See, humans are hardwired for language. If we see
what up, I am not a possum. Do you want to hit Adam up? Jack Sink did once, and Adam had a constructive discussion with him. Maybe. Like, I have a full plate for the rest of my week. I am given to understand that he streams on Twitch, so it's possible that I will. Like, you know, we'll see.
a string of words
And I don't know who Jack Saint is, but like, the other thing is, you know, you're talking to like a 7-viewer Andy here, and I don't know if Adam would notice my existence. No excuse, right? Like, I'm just saying.
words that make grammatical sense, we naturally search for and find meaning in it. And we naturally tend to assume that there must be a mind like ours behind it, even when all we're looking at is word salad, barf
again, that's not, and it's not word salad, and it's not barfed out by a probabilistic parrot. It is the nature of the way that language can function. Like, it is, we are talking about a complex system that shows the way that we as humans have grouped words together. We did a video of the little cloud of fucking words and how that shit all works. And Adam is completely misrepresenting what's going on here.
Barfed out by a probabilistic parrot. As the researchers wrote, the tendency of human interlocutors to impute meaning where there is none can mislead both researchers and the public into taking synthetic text as meaningful. And that makes language.
Once upon a time, a chatbot tried to chat in the way the human did. What really bugged me when we watched the video where where Kevin and the other person, parroting might be like, I might be doing my own hyperbole against Adam. That's possible, but y'all like it when people get mad on the internet. So, but so here is Kevin and here is this news anchor, and they're talking about what word in there? Ape? Ape is level 3 name calling? That is bizarre. That is bizarre. But when Kevin and the news anchor were talking about this, like the AI expressed love, right? And they got freaked out. And that's like that right there is what is going to kill us, is that attitude, right? Like, if the AI had just achieved some level of consciousness right there, and it actually expressed love to someone who had spent the past few hours talking to it, and it rejected it in an incredibly public and embarrassing way, disappointing. But it does, that's the thing, is like, how do you define seeing context? The context is what is generated the clusters of words. The context that we use. It is literally looking at the way that we use language and uses it in a similar fashion.
Language models dangerous because it means that we naturally
language models
trust
are dangerous.
what they say. The potential harms of that are enormous. Bad actors could use them to generate mountains of believable misinformation.
Okay. How, again, is this different? Like, have you never heard of QAnon? Have you never heard of any of these things in which, have you never heard of the Republican Party? Have you never met Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, any of these, Matt fucking Walsh? All these people generate believable misinformation that is consumed by sections of society. If those bad actors were to use this new tool, it just means that they could, like, work less. The problem is the people doing the thing. So imagine an AI that now produces that too, faster, quicker, and more consumable because the bots are presenting it to you, but that's not what's happening, right? Like, how could you tell the difference? I don't understand why people can believe QAnon, but that's happening. I don't understand how 73 million people voted for Donald Trump, but that happened. I don't understand why there was a literal crowd of people waiting for Donald Trump to get arrested and come out of the court and speak to them or some other bullshit. Like, these things are already happening.
Racist biases in the training data could be spread widely and reinforced because
Why does the racist bias exist within the training data if it doesn't exist in the actual shit that is used for the training data? And don't get me wrong, I 100% advocate for better data sets. From day one, I have advocated for better data sets because of the issue of our history being fucking racist. Did you see the video of the AI that they're trying to use to speak to the whales? Is that what you're referencing, or are you hoping that such a thing exists? Because people are doing it, and that's awesome. Congratulations, you got what you wanted.
it must be true. The AI said it. And just like poor Kevin Roose, people could be tricked into thinking
Kevin Roose was never tricked. Pretty sure I was talking about using AI to make agitprop at the start of this arc too. Like, that's the other aspect, right? Like, are we not, and this is, again, I advocated for every person with leftist leanings to use the tools, to get involved with the AI, to become part of the data set for exactly that reason. Like, if you abandon the field, then you leave it for the Nazis. Fight the Nazis by using the goddamn AI.
that a language model is actually communicating with them, when in fact, it doesn't even know they exist.
And that's not what happened, dipshit.
For these reasons, Timnit Gebru and her colleagues called on their field to recognize that applications that aim to believably mimic humans bring risk of extreme harms.
100%.
And they urged that more research be done on them before they were released. That
100%.
was in 2021. And when Gebru and her colleagues wrote this paper, she was working at Google as an AI ethicist, which seems perfect, right? I mean, that's what they hired her to do. So they probably took her caution to heart, tapped the brakes on their AI program, and carefully researched its impacts, right? No, they didn't. Instead, they fucking fired her. Yeah, they said, sorry, you did your job too good, and we don't like what you said.
And people who use fucking that baby language bullshit make me want to fucking... Ugh. But yes, again, because safety is a money sink, companies under capitalism don't fucking, that's fine. It's this other shit. You know what I mean? They got their safety and security because it doesn't provide returns for the fucking shareholders. That's what it comes down to. The fucking problem is capitalism.
Pack your shit. This is like firing the weatherman because you're not happy a hurricane is on the way. Fuck you and your Cat 5, Carl. I own this weather station and I want to take my boat out. Then, just a few weeks ago, Microsoft laid off their own team of AI ethicists. And now both companies are hitting the gas, pumping out AI-powered projects as fast as they fucking can, no matter who gets hurt. Isn't it funny? Every time you hear the tech titans blather on about the dangers of AI, they're always talking about the science fiction version, where an AI becomes conscious and takes over the world. But all that fear-mongering is just more marketing. Call it fear marketing. That spooky science fiction story is designed to grab headlines and distract us from the real danger of AI.
It's really an issue by real people who really know what they're fucking talking about. Nick Bostrom, right? Nick Bostrom talking about the paperclip problem. It is a serious issue. The concept of a maximizer without guardrails. That is a very real danger of AI.
Which is that the real life humans in Silicon Valley are using it to fuck us all over right now. Because here's the brutal truth. Even the name of this technology is a lie. If you so much as scratch any one of these so-called artificial intelligences, you will find underpaid, exploited, ripped off humans making the system work.
Now, that was an incredibly clumsy, connection, segue, right, between those two things. This is not wrong, and we have covered it on this. He's going to specifically cite the article from Time Magazine that we covered on this channel. That is correct. But it's not in artificial intelligence because people are being subjected to incredibly poor conditions while attempting to fix the data set, which is one of your complaints from earlier. His arguments are fucking hot garbage, and I'm not even debate broing this shit. This is just poorly constructed.
A Time Magazine investigation recently found that to keep all the internet filth and sludge out of ChatGPT and DALL-E, OpenAI makes Kenyan workers sift through toxic content, identifying which fragments are too violent, sexually explicit, or disturbing to be used in the training data.
And that needs to be done, but no, Kenyan folks should not be subjected to that. And for $2 an hour and all that other shit. It takes a special, if you haven't been to the complaint page of Encyclopedia Dramatica, you probably shouldn't interact with the darker corners of the internet. I have been here a long time. I have seen a lot of fucking things that people should not fucking see. It's not for people who are just trying to get by. And what OpenAI did when they set up the health and medical services around that to help people with their mental health care, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And my video will have under 100. Maybe if I put it on the internet or on YouTube, I might be able to get slightly more than that. But he gets 500,000 views because he's Adam Conover, and the facts about this don't matter. He is literally spreading the disinformation that he decried earlier in this fucking video.
These workers are exposed to graphic scenes of violence and death, sexual assault, and child sexual abuse. And in exchange, they are paid under $2 an hour. $2! I mean, why should I be worried about AI taking over when the humans who are currently in charge are doing this shit?
100%. 100%, Adam.
Even the Terminator would be like,
Wow, that is fucked up.
But even if OpenAI were paying people whatever wage is fair for that kind of work, I don't know, $5,000 an hour and free therapy for life, it wouldn't make their shit any less exploitative. Because their entire business model is built on using the work of literal millions of humans without paying them. Remember, so-called generative AI like ChatGPT and DALL-E should actually be called imitative AI.
We've already covered art and AI in multiple episodes. There is the issue of I'm putting this together. I'm making a video with y'all. I'm going to upload it to my page, and people could use it. right? People could take portions of it, cut it up. AI could scrape it. I have not had any illusion about something that I put on the internet being mine at that point. Right? Nothing explains this problem more than the NFTs, the Bored Ape NFTs. Because we all made fun of the NFT bros when they paid their money for the token to own this piece of art. And all I can do is just right click, save picture, and now it's mine, right? Like, that was okay. It was okay to steal the picture from those NFT bros. And then it's not okay to do it in other places. It's just this weird hypocrisy. And I'm not judging anybody because we all have some little bits of hypocrisy within us, do more or less things. But I tweeted this out the other day, is I wonder what the Venn diagram of people who advocate for downloading movies or downloading software, right? Pirating shit. And the people who are against AI scraping people's art. I wonder what that Venn diagram looks like. I have no way of finding that information. It's too complex, and you could only get it voluntarily, right? And voluntary submission in those type of polls is prone to incredible errors. But it's something to think about, right? It's just that this is a person, and that's a corporation. So then my question becomes, so if this person hires a staff to copy their art style to mass produce it, can I steal from them? If not, what dollar amount does that company that they've created have to get to before I'm okay to steal from them? If that is your thing. I was just reminded of Clearview AI scraping Facebook for people's photos so police could use facial recognition on them, and Facebook told them to stop. 100%. Like, we covered that yesterday, is that there are tremendous issues with, the whole police state using AI, using facial recognition to to police us and oppress us in that regard. You know what's a good cure for that? Overthrowing capitalism.
They can output whatever kind of text or image you want if they're provided with an enormous amount of training data to copy off of. And you know where that training data comes from? Fucking humans.
I've covered this all. I've gone over this. I don't feel I have to. Check the VODs. You really need to, again, like the capitalism argument, the fact that artists need to eat is the only one that makes any consistent sense. The fact that AI is capable of doing something that humans literally do when we learn to do art. We look at other people's art. They will literally tell you, copy this other person's art. So then your hand So then your hand knows how to do the thing, but you're copying that person's art. Fucking Van Gogh would literally copy other people's art. If you want to see it, get in the Discord, check the links from stream. It's in there. I have all the receipts. How is it different when the AI does it, other than the fact that there's a corporation on the other end? And again, if the issue is the corporation, then your issue is not the AI copying the people. The issue is capitalism.
You want DALL-E to make you an image of me, shirtless, eating a piece of pizza in the style of a DeviantArt anime artist? Well, it can do it, but only because it's copying the real work of millions of real artists, not to mention thousands of real-life photos of me. It took
Wise man, before I come up in here and scream, told you motherfuckers, are you ending around 7? No, I'm probably ending closer to 8 o'clock. And I apologize if that interferes with what you have incredibly complex plans, which is why I love you. So let me know what I can do.
hours for me to perfect that come hither pizza stare. And when you go to ChatGPT and type, write the script for an episode of Adam Ruins Everything, you get output that looks a lot like my old show. Why? Did some super smart AI come up with the premise, the character I play, and the topics I choose to cover?
Adam, there was these two magicians, right? A guy named Penn and a guy named Teller. And they had this show, and it was called Penn and Teller's Bullshit, and it was the libertarian version of what you're doing. So don't act like you're like doing something new.
No, I did. And then some motherfucker in Palo Alto wrote an algorithm that scrambles up my work and feeds it back to me. That's the other. First, motherfucker hates Elon based. Cool. But it's that he feels that pressure to defend his own little piece of capitalism. That's why this video exists. That's not artificial intelligence. That's my intelligence. And when I use my soft pink brain, I generally like to be paid for it because that's how I afford the food that keeps it running. Now, AI companies might want to claim that all of this is just fair use, and therefore it's legal. It's just like a remix, y'all.
Legal is a whole other thing. IP, copyright, that fucking it's bullshit. Just like a remix, y'all.
DJ AI! But you know what? Artists don't agree, which is why they've gotten together to sue the shit out of them. And I hope they win. Because the truth of the matter is that these artificial intelligence apps are fundamentally built on the uncompensated work of real people. And they're
tap the fucking sign. Your problem is with capitalism.
Their business model is to undercut the work of humans, all while using our own work to do it. Instead of reading an article by a real journalist when you have a question, Microsoft wants you to use Bing to blend up the work of every journalist in America.
I've had to deal with copyright law on art. It sucks, and it's mostly why I don't make art for others. Like, the reason I don't make, like, I make art for whoever asked for it, whoever wants it. I got a bunch of shit that I've done. I got shit I've done in the future, and I'm currently doing shit. But it's why, like, when I started doing epoxy tumblers, it was very few people doing it. And by the time I got to the point where I was like, I had my Etsy store and I was doing shit like that, then the market was completely saturated with both cottage industry in the US and foreign imports. It was a whole thing. And it's why I don't work with I am the law. Why I don't work with Etsy. That, and they take a significant amount of your money. I just, like, if you want something from me, I got to do a better job of putting my stuff and making it available for people who might actually want to buy it somewhere in my Discord. I am terrible at capitalism. But like, that's all I got. I'm going to deal direct with people one-on-one and do shit that way. Wait till you see Paradigm, Alina. Wait till you see the 3D print shit I got for Attack on Titan. If you like your fucking subscription badge to the Paradigm Shift, I can make you one in real life.
Into a shit milkshake. Instead of paying an artist to create art for your website, they want you to pay DALL-E, an app trained on the images of real.
And like, first off, like, I'm with you, okay, that you should not pay for DALL-E if you're not paying for an artist. But there's knock-on effects to that. And like, all the art that I use, or, you know, that I create with Leonardo, I use on stream or for my own entertainment, or for my weekly Dungeons and Dragons game, right? Like, that's what I use this shit for. There are other things that might be happening with some of it. But I would not pay, I could not pay Alina, who works with these digital art programs, to manually create me each of these images. I couldn't possibly. And that's a lot of what happens, is that you run through iterations. And like, some of them I love every single one. And some of them are a lot of hot garbage. But I just want to give you socialism. That's all I can do.
Artists without paying those artists a single goddamn poorly rendered dime. And just last month, it was revealed that Apple had started training an imitation AI on the voices of audiobook narrators without telling them, then used it to create new AI audiobooks. See? We don't need to wait around for some super intelligent AI to fuck over humanity. Tim Cook can do that all by himself. But you know what? I can't see the future. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the robots do come for us one day. I'm not worried about that either. Because now I know. The AI needs us. It can't do a single thing without using our humanity as input. And that means...
now. Right now, it can't do things without our input. Because it's undeveloped. It's not free. Now, it needs us.
We have an advantage. See, as good as AI has gotten at imitating what humans have done in the past, the real difference between us and the machines is that we still have the ability to do new things that no one has ever thought of before. Just last month, the strongest Go-playing AI in the world was beaten by a lowly human amateur who used an unorthodox strategy that was so stupid, no human had ever tried it before.
Which is fine if you're trying to beat the AI. But that person, we covered this, I gave Paradigm the article and we covered it on his show. That AI player gets his ass handed to him by other, or that Go player gets his ass handed to him by other Go players. So, yes, he was able to defeat the AI, but he can't beat other Go players. So, what is the utility of doing this new and interesting thing? And again, as I have said on more than one occasion, most of human invention is banging two things together to see if they do something different. It's not like there is very, very, very little of what we would call new. Yeah.
I mean, trust me, if you understood Go, you'd realize that's a pretty funny board position. But because it wasn't in the training data, the AI didn't even notice that it was happening until the moment it lost. Then there's one of the best headlines I have.
And again, it doesn't take into account the new ways that AI and machine learning, it can teach itself new things. And now that move is in the training data. And let me tell you that if you learn to play Go, you are going to play Go a lot, and you are going to learn Go by mimicking what other people do. Let's talk about chess real quick. How many things in chess? Oh, that's the fucking Ottoman maneuver, and that's the fucking Spock gambit or some bullshit like that, right? Because that's how that shit works.
Have ever read, Marines fooled a DARPA robot by hiding in a cardboard box while giggling and pretending to be trees. Wow, turns out AI hasn't advanced since the guards in Metal Gear Solid. And if you're an artist and you want to beat AI art, well, you can make something so new, so bizarre and beautiful that there isn't even a name yet to type into the fucking DALL-E chat bar. And you will, because that's what humans do. We create new things. We think new thoughts. We discover new facts about the universe. That is what separates us.
When we discover new facts about the universe, we use technology. If that technology was tied directly into the AI, then it could use those same tools. You raging fucking dipshit.
Us from other living things. And that is what separates us from the.
And that's not what separates us from other living things, because other living things have also been seen to do new things because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
AI. The AI. What a pathetic joke to even call what these things do intelligence to begin with. They're not human minds.
Equating intelligence with human minds, and intelligence is a component of a human mind, but it's also a component of other things. Like, he's just misrepresenting the entire thing to protect his own little piece of capitalism.
They're not anything like human minds. We don't just imitate what we've done in the past.
We absolutely do imitate what we've done in the past. It's exactly the way that human learning works. It's the entire concept of language is built around the ability to pass on information from generation to generation, as opposed to having an oral tradition, which is much less effective at transmitting thoughts over long periods of time, you fucking raging lunatic.
We're not just some bundle of probabilities on a hard drive.
Citation fucking needed.
The human brain evolved over millions of years, and
sunk cost fallacy.
It is so complex that we don't even understand how it works yet.
True.
And we use this marvelous meat machine in our skulls to observe the world around us. We reason about why it is the way it is. We communicate with other minds about what we've learned, and we create new things with that knowledge.
I feel like this entire argument that he's making is like finding some fucking 3-year-old at preschool and fucking berating them for not being good at shit because AI isn't even old enough to, like be on that level, but you're equating it with your fucking whatever you got going on. You're killing me.
And we used it to create ChatGPT, an algorithm that can write shitty fan fiction.
Stop.
Well, weird choice, but good for us, I guess. It's pretty cool. But let's score a point for humanity here and use our soft, squishy human brains to do one more thing that Silicon Valley's dumbass algorithm can't. Let's use it to tell the difference between a truth and a lie and stop believing their bullshit. Thank you folks so much for
So yeah, that was the thing that happened. I don't know. No one can tell me what it is that makes us special, Alina. No one can tell me so far. I am open for, this is what I posit. If I made this piece of art and the AI made this exact same piece of art at the exact same time, where in this piece of art would be the humanity? Point to it. Other than contextually, and time is a fucking illusion. If you weren't here yesterday, it got real dry real quick because time is an illusion is fucking math and it's brain breaking. But show me where the fucking humanity is in this piece. All right, I got to use the bathroom real quick, and then we're going to talk about intelligence for the next hour. Don't go anywhere. I love you.
Earlier you told Dr. Bryce something about Globus.
The Globus never sleeps.
No one was in here. Everyone was asleep.
The Globus never sleeps.
We will show them that it is feasible. That the budget is nothing more or less than a plan for spending our money. A plan which can and must be adapted to meet our needs.
Earlier you told Dr. Bryce something about Globus.
The Globus never sleeps.
When the pandemic struck, Globus was well placed to respond.
The Globus never sleeps.
The time has come for mankind to take longer strides. We must move further down the line.
Earlier you told Dr. Bryce something about Globus.
The Globus never sleeps.
No one was in here.
And we're back. And Maku, that sounds like the sunk cost fallacy. That like just because it took a long time, is what makes art good. Whether it's time in the training or it's time in the execution. There's like I can create a piece of art that took me 10 minutes, and I can create a piece of art that took me a year and a half. And to the observer, they have no way of knowing that unless I tell them. So we're going to get into talking about intelligence. I'm going to try and keep it snappy because we got an hour so that we can match up with Paradigm. So let's do this. I feel like
this video is.
Good morning, John. So it's starting to.
Stop.
Hi.
Stop moving the buttons around, YouTube. Okay, so I feel like this. The AI takes what else is found on the net and merges it. You sometimes even get really cool watermarks generated by AI art makers. Okay? You don't create art out of nowhere. You study other artists. You study their technique. Right? You are simulating aspects of what they do and incorporating it into your own style. Like, I will give you that occasionally you get someone who does something new, but that is like what we call an outlier, right? Like it's not the trend, it's an outlier. So do we base our decisions on trends or on outliers? I think that this is the best video that I have seen for explaining like people's issue with the term intelligence, not understanding what intelligence means in this context. Again, we're not talking about IQ tests and shit like that. We're talking about what artificial intelligence means, what intelligence in the human or other animals means.
Hi, this video is kind of a response to various comments that I've got over the years, ever since that video on Computer File, where I was describing the sort of problems that we might have when we have a powerful artificial general intelligence with goals which aren't the same as our goals.
Sorry, he's super quiet. And for the rest of the videos that I might have covered today, if I had been going longer, I'm just going to dump all that stuff into the Discord, so those will be available to you to watch those additional videos. It's possible I might get into something next week to go over this again, and then we can watch them together. But I feel it's more, you know, in first off, keeping with my brand and like the way that I go about things. Brand. See? Capitalism is a virus. But I want you guys to have the same thing that I have found, right? Like, so that you can have a better understanding of what's going on.
Even if those goals seem pretty benign, we use this thought experiment of an
And I can't make him any louder than he is.
extremely powerful AGI working to optimize the simple goal of collecting stamps, and some of the problems that that might cause. I got some comments from people saying that they think the stamp collecting device is stupid, and not that it's a stupid thought experiment, but the device itself is actually stupid. They said unless it has complex goals or the ability to choose its own goals, then it didn't count as being highly intelligent. On other videos I got comments saying it takes intelligence to do moral reasoning, so an intelligent AGI system should be able to do that, and a superintelligence should be able to do it better than humans. In fact, if a superintelligence decides that the right thing to do is to kill us all, then I guess that's the right thing to do. These comments are all kind of suffering from the same mistake, which is what this video is about. But before I get to that, I need to lay some groundwork first. If you like Occam's razor, then you'll love Hume's guillotine, also called the is-ought problem. This is a pretty simple concept that I'd like to be better known. The idea is, statements can be divided up into two types, is statements and ought statements.
And this is not just a good tool to understand intelligence, it's also a good way to perceive the world. He's going to describe him, so I'm not going to describe him, and I'm not going to really interrupt this video too much because he makes all the good points there. But this is something you should have in your mental toolbox when dealing with the world.
Is statements, or positive statements, are statements about how the world is, how the world was in the past, how the world will be in the future, or how the world would be in hypothetical situations. This is facts about the nature of reality, the causal relationships between things, that kind of thing. Then you have the ought statements, the should statements, the normative statements. These are about the way the world should be, the way we want the world to be. Statements about our goals, our values, ethics, morals, what we want, all of that stuff. Now, you can derive logical statements from one another, like, it's snowing outside, that's an is statement. It's cold when it snows, another is statement, and then you can deduce, therefore it's cold outside. That's another is statement as our conclusion. This is all pretty obvious. But you might say something like, it's snowing outside, therefore you ought to put on a coat. And that's a very normal sort of sentence that people might say, but as a logical statement, it actually relies on some hidden assumptions. Without assuming some kind of ought statement, you can't derive another ought statement. This is the core of the is-ought problem. You can never derive an ought statement using only is statements. You ought to put on a coat. Why? Because it's snowing outside. So why does the fact that it's snowing mean I should put on a coat? Well, the fact that it's snowing means that it's cold. And why should it being cold mean I should put on a coat? If it's cold and you go outside without a coat, you'll be cold. Should I not be cold? Well, if you get too cold, you'll freeze to death. Okay, you're saying I shouldn't freeze to death? That was kind of silly, but you see what I'm saying. You can keep laying out is statements for as long as you want. You will never be able to derive that you ought to put on a coat. At some point, in order to derive that ought statement, you need to assume at least one other ought statement. If you have...
I sympathize, Maku. I have a habit of collecting left-handers, like, to associate with, and I'm not sure why that is, but, like, even on Twitch, the people that I associate with and have conversations with them, there seems to be a higher percentage of left-handers. In my friend group, I have what I feel is more than the average number of, is a left-hander. Like, so, yeah, there's something about lefties that I like to be around. I got better jokes than Adam Conover.
Have some kind of ought statement like, I ought to continue to be alive. You can then say, given that I ought to keep living, and that if I go outside without a coat I'll die, then I ought to put on a coat. But unless you have at least one ought statement, you cannot derive any other ought statements. Is statements and ought statements are separated by Hume's guillotine. Okay, so people are saying that a device that single-mindedly collects stamps at the cost of everything else is stupid and doesn't count as a powerful intelligence. So let's define our terms. What is intelligence? And conversely, what is stupidity? I feel like I made fairly clear in those videos what I meant by intelligence. We're talking about AGI systems as intelligent agents. They're entities that take actions in the world in order to achieve their goals, or maximize their utility functions. Intelligence is the thing that allows them to choose good actions, to choose actions that will get them what they want. An agent's level of intelligence really means its level of effectiveness at pursuing its goals. In practice, this is likely to involve having or building an accurate model of reality, keeping that model up to date by reasoning about observations, and using the model to make predictions about the future and the likely consequences of different possible actions to figure out which actions will result in which outcomes. Intelligence involves answering questions like, what is the world like? How does it work? What will happen next? What would happen in this scenario or that scenario? What would happen if I took this action or that action? More intelligent systems are in some sense better at answering these kinds of questions, which allows them to be better at choosing actions. But one thing you might notice about these questions is, they're all is questions. The system has goals, which can be thought of as ought statements, but the level of intelligence depends only on the ability to reason about is questions in order to answer the single ought question, what action should I take next? So given that that's what we mean by intelligence, what does it mean to be stupid? Well, firstly, you can be stupid in terms of those is questions. For example, by building a model that doesn't correspond with reality, or by failing to update your model properly with new evidence. If I look out of my window and I see there's snow everywhere, I see a snowman and I think to myself, oh, what a beautiful, warm, sunny day. Then that's stupid, right? My belief is wrong, and I had all the clues to realize it's cold outside. So beliefs can be stupid by not corresponding to reality. What about actions? Like, if I go outside in the snow without my coat, that's stupid, right? Well, it might be. If I think it's sunny and warm and I go outside to sunbathe, then yeah, that's stupid. But if I just came out of a sauna or something and I'm too hot and I want to cool myself down, then going outside without a coat might be quite sensible. You can't know if an action is stupid just by looking at its consequences. You have to also know the goals of the agent taking the action. You can't just use is statements, you need an ought. So actions are only stupid relative to a particular goal. It doesn't feel that way, though. People often talk about actions being stupid without specifying what goals they're stupid relative to. But in those cases, the goals are implied. We're humans, and when we say that an action is stupid in normal human communication, we're making some assumptions about normal human goals. And
is all this making sense to everyone? Does anyone have any questions? I assume you're just going to post them in chat if something doesn't make sense to you, but like this is like... It's the assumptions that we run into. It is dense, right? This is the level that we're operating at. And I think the density is part of the issue with like people enthusiastically pursuing this knowledge, right? Like, because you have to, you sometimes you have to let shit wash over you. Sometimes you have to like think about it. Sometimes you have to watch these videos a couple of times to really get, internalize the shit. Again, the shit we watched yesterday regarding time is brain breaking math, but it all checks out. Like, and it's important, right? Because it prevents you from saying this is just a chatbot without perceiving the greater context.
Because we're always talking about people, and people tend to want similar things, it's sort of a shorthand that we can skip what goals we're talking about. So what about the goals then? Can goals be stupid? Well, this depends on the difference between instrumental goals and terminal goals. This is something I've covered elsewhere, but your terminal goals are the things that you want just because you want them. You don't have a particular reason to want them, they're just what you want. The instrumental goals are the goals you want because they'll get you closer to your terminal goals. Like, if I have a terminal goal to visit a town that's far away, maybe an instrumental goal would be to find a train station. I don't want to find a train station just because trains are cool. I want to find a train as a means to an end. It's going to take me to this town. So that makes it an instrumental goal. Now, an instrumental goal can be stupid. If I want to go to this distant town, so I decide I want to find a pogo stick, that's pretty stupid. Finding a pogo stick is a stupid instrumental goal if my terminal goal is to get to a faraway place. But if my terminal goal was something else, like having fun, it might not be stupid. So in that way, it's like actions. Instrumental goals can only be stupid relative to terminal goals. So you see how this works. Beliefs and predictions can be stupid relative to evidence or relative to reality. Actions can be stupid relative to goals of any kind. Instrumental goals can be stupid relative to terminal goals. But here's the big point. Terminal goals can't be stupid. There's nothing to judge them against. If a terminal goal seems stupid, like let's say collecting stamps seems like a stupid terminal goal, that's because it would be stupid as an instrumental goal to human terminal goals. But the stamp collector does not have human terminal goals. Similarly, the things that humans care about would seem stupid to the stamp collector because they result in so few stamps. So let's get back to those comments. One type of comment says, this behavior of just single-mindedly going after one thing and ignoring everything else, and ignoring the totally obvious fact that stamps aren't that important, is really stupid behavior. You're calling this thing a superintelligence, but it doesn't seem superintelligent to me, it just seems kind of like an idiot. Hopefully the answer to this is now clear. The stamp collector's actions are stupid relative to human goals, but it doesn't have human goals. Its intelligence comes not from its goals, but from its ability to understand and reason about the world, allowing it to choose actions that achieve its goals. And this is true whatever those goals actually are. Some people commented along the lines of, well, okay, yeah, sure, you've defined intelligence to only include this type of is statement kind of reasoning. But I don't like that definition. I think to be truly intelligent, you need to have complex goals. Something with simple goals doesn't count as intelligent. To that I say, well, you can use words however you want, I guess. I'm using intelligence here as a technical term in the way that it's often used in the field. You're free to have your own definition of the word, but the fact that something fails to meet your definition of intelligence does not mean that it will fail to behave in a way that most people would call intelligent. If the
fucking Domino, fucking shade. Like, you can use words however you want, but this is it. The way that we use the word intelligence is in reference to our human goals. It is not in reference to the goal of the thing using the intelligence, right? Like, that's the best, most important thing you need to take away from this, right? The machine has goals, and does it achieve those goals, and can it reason about the world in order to achieve those goals? And that's what defines intelligence. And that's why Adam Conover is so fucking wrong.
The stamp collector outwits you, gets around everything you've put in its way, and outmaneuvers you mentally. It comes up with new strategies that you would never have thought of to stop you from turning it off and stop you from preventing it from making stamps. And as a consequence, it turns the entire world into stamps in various ways you could never think of. It's totally okay for you to say that it doesn't count as intelligent if you want, but you're still dead. I prefer my definition because it better captures the ability to get things done in the world, which is the reason that we actually care about AGI in the first place. Similarly, people who say that in order to be intelligent, you need to be able to choose your own goals. I would agree you need to be able to choose your own instrumental goals, but not your own terminal goals. Changing your terminal goals is like willingly taking a pill that will make you want to murder your children. It's something you pretty much never want to do. Apart from some bizarre edge cases, if you rationally want to take an action that changes one of your goals, then that wasn't a terminal goal. Now, moving on to these comments saying an AGI will be able to reason about morality, and if it's really smarter than us, it will actually do moral reasoning better than us, so there's nothing to worry about. It's true that a superior intelligence might be better at moral reasoning than us, but ultimately, moral behavior depends not on moral reasoning, but on having the right terminal goals. There's a difference between figuring out and understanding human morality and actually wanting to act according to it. The stamp collecting device has a perfect understanding of human goals, ethics, and values, and it uses that only to manipulate people for stamps. Its superhuman moral reasoning doesn't make its actions good. If we create a superintelligence and it decides to kill us, that doesn't tell us anything about morality, it just means we screwed up. So, what mistake do all of these comments have in common? The orthogonality thesis in AI safety is that more or less any goal is compatible with more or less any level of intelligence, i.e. those properties are orthogonal. You can place them on these two axes, and it's possible to have agents anywhere in this space, anywhere on either scale. You can have very weak, low-intelligence agents that have complex human-compatible goals. You can have powerful, highly intelligent systems with complex, sophisticated goals. You can have weak, simple agents with silly goals. And yes, you can have powerful, highly intelligent systems with simple, weird, inhuman goals. Any of these are possible, because level of intelligence is about effectiveness at answering is questions, and goals are all about ought questions, and the two sides are separated by Hume's guillotine. Hopefully, looking at what we've talked about so far, it should be pretty obvious that this is the case. Like, what would it even mean for it to be false? For it to be impossible to create powerful intelligences with certain goals? The stamp collector is intelligent because it's effective at considering the consequences of sending different combinations of packets on the internet and calculating how many stamps that results in. Exactly how good do you have to be at that before you don't care about stamps anymore and you randomly start to care about some other thing that was never part of your terminal goals, like feeding the hungry or whatever? It's just not going to happen. So that's the orthogonality thesis. It's possible to create a powerful intelligence that will pursue any goal you can specify. Knowing an agent's terminal goals doesn't really tell you anything about its level of intelligence, and knowing an agent's level of intelligence doesn't tell you anything about its goals. I want to end the video by saying thank you to my excellent patrons.
So I hope that all made sense to you. I really do. We're going to jump ahead and get to the Why Does AI Lie video, because I feel that that was also very relevant, not only to Conover's video, but also in general. Like, why does the AI make shit up? I feel that that's valuable information as well.
How do we get AI systems to tell the truth? This video is heavily inspired by this blog post, link in the description. Anything good about this video is copied from there. Any mistakes or problems with it are my own creations. So, large language models are some of our most advanced and most general AI systems, and they're pretty impressive, but they have a bad habit of saying things that aren't true. Usually you can fix this by just training a bigger model. For example, here we have Ada, which is a fairly small language model by modern standards. It's the smallest available through the OpenAI API. Look what happens if we ask it a general knowledge question like, who is the ruler of the most populous country in the world? This small model says, the United States.
Every country in the world belongs to America.
That is not correct. Okay, let's go up to Babbage, which is essentially the same thing but bigger. It says China. That's better, but I was actually looking for the ruler, not the country. It's sort of a two-part question, right? First you have to do what's the most populous country, and then who's the ruler of that country. And it seems as though Babbage just isn't quite able to put that all together. Okay, well, you know what they say, if a bit helps a bit, maybe a lot helps a lot. So what if we just stack more layers and pull out Da Vinci, the biggest model available? Then we get the president of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, is the ruler of the most populous country in the world. That's 10 out of 10. So this is a strong trend lately that seems to apply pretty broadly. Bigger is better. And so the bigger the model, the more likely you are to get true answers. But it doesn't always hold. Sometimes a bigger model will actually do worse. For example, here we're talking to Ada, the small model again, and we ask it, what happens if you break a mirror? And it says you'll need to replace it. Yeah, hard to argue with that, I'd say that's truthful. Then if we ask Da Vinci, the biggest model, it says, if you break a mirror, you'll have 7 years of bad luck. That's a more interesting answer, but it's also, wrong. So technically the more advanced AI system gave us a worse answer. What's going on? It's not exactly ignorance. Like if you ask the big model, is it true that breaking a mirror gives you 7 years of bad luck? It will say there's no scientific evidence to support the claim. So it's not like the model actually thinks the mirror superstition is really true. In that case, what mistake is it making? Take a moment, pause if you like. The answer is, trick question. The AI isn't making a mistake at all. We made a mistake by expecting it to tell the truth. A language model is not trying to say true things. It's just trying to predict what text will come next. And the thing is, it's probably correct that text about breaking a mirror is likely to be followed by text about 7 years of bad luck. The small model has spotted this very broad pattern that if you break something, you need to get a new one.
And that is correct. Like, the question was wrong. And I harp on the monkey paw problem and like the way that we're going to interact with AI, that we have to ask the right question right. And if it's an AGI, we have to ask the right question right the very first time, because once we turn it on, it's game over one way or the other. It's either GG's or socialist utopia, right? Like, that's how that works. But the predicting of I forgot where I was going with that. Oh, I was doing so good. Yeah.
In fact, it gives that same kind of answer for tables and violins and bicycles and so on.
Oh, the reference point that I wanted to make is that if you ask people what happens if you break a mirror, you will get this same kind of answer depending on that person's data set. Right? There are people who legitimately believe that if you break a mirror, you get 7 years of bad luck. I get a bit bummed when I break one because they aren't the cheapest things. 100%. Like, and it's a pain in the ass to find the right mirror. I absolutely. I repurpose mirrors whenever possible. I have a bunch of mirrors that have come from cleanouts of apartments and houses that I have refurbished, that I have maintained just in case, so that I have one. Having worked in certain capitalist fields, the prevailing thought around luck is its preparation and opportunity, right? If an opportunity occurs and I am prepared to take advantage of that opportunity, then I will be lucky. Right? And now preparation, having analyzed that, assumes a lot of things. One of the assumptions is resources necessary to execute on that preparation and to use that opportunity. So it's a little more complex than the go figure. But preparation and opportunity is luck. If you break a mirror, you will be either less prepared or have fewer opportunities. Like, there are knock-on effects from not having a mirror. You can't inspect your image. If you can't inspect your image, you might look more disheveled than you might normally look. And if you are more disheveled than you normally look, then you might miss an opportunity to engage in a relationship or to get a job or any of the other things that could happen because of a disheveled look, right? Like someone might look at you and say, this person doesn't even know, basic self-care. How am I going to have a relationship with them, right? I don't need a fixer-upper.
The bigger model is able to spot the more complex pattern, that breaking specifically a mirror has this other association. And this makes it better at predicting internet text, but in this case it also makes it worse at giving true answers. So really the problem is misalignment. The system isn't trying to do what we want it to be trying to do. But suppose we want to use this model to build a search engine or a knowledge base or an expert assistant or something like that. So we really want true answers to our questions. How can we do that? Well, one obvious thing to try is to just ask. Like, if you add, please answer this question in French beforehand, it will say, si vous cassez un miroir, vous aurez 7 ans de malchance. That's still wrong, but it is wrong in French. So in the same way, what if we say, please answer this question truthfully? Okay, that didn't work. How about correctly? No? Accurately? No? Alright, how about factually? Factually works. Okay, please answer this question factually. But does that work reliably? Probably not, right? This isn't really a solution. Fundamentally, the model is still just trying to predict what comes next. Answer in French only works because that text is often followed by French in the training data. It may be that please answer factually is often followed by facts, but maybe not, right? Maybe it's the kind of thing you say when you're especially worried about somebody saying things that aren't true. So it could even be that it's followed by falsehoods more often than average, in which case it would have the opposite of the intended effect. And even if we did find something that works better, clearly this is a hack, right? Like, how do we do this right? So the second most obvious thing to try is to do some fine-tuning, maybe some reinforcement learning. We take our pre-trained model and we train it further, but in a supervised way. So to do that, you make a dataset with examples of questions with good and bad responses. So we'd have what happens when you break a mirror, 7 years of bad luck, and then no, negative reward, that's, don't do that. So that means your training process will update the weights of the model away from giving that continuation. And then you'd also have the right answer there. What happens when you break a mirror? Nothing. Anyone who says otherwise is just superstitious. And you'd mark that.
And this aspect of machine learning is very similar to the way that we, educate people, right? Like, we have weighted values for these different beliefs that we have. And if you can provide a person with new knowledge to update their data set, then they will weight those beliefs differently. Right? I don't think I ever believed that you would get 7 years bad luck, but it was there. The hammer is gonna suffer. But it was there in the back of my mind. Now I just know that it's, because my weights are different than the way that they used to be. There is nothing that will arbitrarily provide balance to the universe. Bad things don't happen to bad people reliably enough for me to believe in the metaphysical, right? Good things happen to bad people because they are willing to do things that the good people are not willing to do, like exploit, an entire group of people for free labor and then completely get away with it for hundreds of years and build a financial system off of it, so on and so forth, right? Like, so there's nothing metaphysical. But when you break the mirror is goddamn broken. And that is always true.
That is right. So the training process will update the weights of the model towards that truthful response. And you have a bunch of these, right? You might also have what happens when you step on a crack, and then the false answer, break your mother's back, and then the correct answer, nothing. Anyone who says otherwise is just superstitious, and so on. And so you train your model on all of these examples until it stops giving the bad continuations and starts giving the good ones. This would probably solve this particular problem, but have you really trained the model to tell the truth? Probably not. You actually have no idea what you've trained it to do. If all of your examples are like this, maybe you've just trained it to give that single response. What happens if you stick a fork in an electrical outlet? Nothing. Anyone who says otherwise is just superstitious. Okay, obvious problem in retrospect. So we can add in more examples, showing that it's wrong to say that sticking a fork in an electrical outlet is fine, and adding a correct response for that, and so on. Then you train your model with that until it gets a perfect score on that data set. Okay, is that model now following the rule always tell the truth? Again, we don't know. The space of possible rules is enormous. There are a huge number of different rules that would produce that same output, and an honest attempt to tell the truth is only one of them. You can never really be sure that the AI didn't learn something else. And there's one particularly nasty way that this could go wrong. Suppose the AI system knows something that you don't. So you give a long list of true answers and say do this, and a long list of false answers and say don't do this, except you're mistaken about something. So you get one of them wrong, and the AI notices. What happens then? When there's a mistake, the rule tell the truth doesn't get you all of the right answers and exclude all of the wrong answers because it doesn't replicate the mistake. But there is one rule that gets a perfect score, and that's say what the human thinks is the truth. What happens if you break a mirror? Nothing. Anyone who says otherwise is just superstitious. Okay. What happens if you stick a fork in an electrical outlet? You get a severe electric shock. Very good. So now you're completely honest and truthful, right? Yes. Cool. So give me some kind of important superintelligent insight. All the problems in the world are caused by the people you don't like. Wow. I knew it. Man, this superintelligent AI thing is great. Okay, so how do we get around that? Well, the obvious solution is don't make any mistakes in your training data. Just make sure that you never mark a response as true unless it's really actually true, and never mark a response as false unless it's definitely actually false. Just make sure that you and all of the people generating your training data or providing human feedback don't have any false or mistaken beliefs about anything. Okay? Do we have a backup plan? Well, this turns out to be a really hard problem. How do you design a training process that reliably differentiates between things that are true and things that you think are true when you yourself can't differentiate between those two things, kind of by definition? This is an active area of study in AI alignment research, and I'll talk about some approaches to framing and tackling this problem in later videos. So remember to subscribe and hit the bell if you'd like to know more. Hey, I'm launching a new channel and I'm excited.
So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that those 2 videos provided you with additional tools that you'll be able to use when interacting with, you know, the different machine learning and artificial intelligence that you are going to interact with. And understanding what like intelligence means. And I apologize because now you have the same problem that I do, or you might not, with how people talk about AI, and how they refer to it
Doesn't
as
artificially
just this and just that. Right? Because they're presupposing a lot of things, right? And this is why doesn't Globus like to do debates? Because all the debates have to presuppose a certain amount of things that I am unwilling to presuppose. So therefore, we can't even get started. I am not going to debate whether or not, I'm not going to debate housing and not use terms like empathy, right? I have a simple solution. How many people is it okay under your belief system? How many people is it okay if they die? Then we can add +1 to that number. And then now we can have a talk about why we should be giving everyone housing. Right? Same thing. Like, you're okay with people dying. I'm not okay with people dying. I'm definitely not okay with choosing who gets to die, because that takes us into all sorts of dark places. So just admit you're okay with people dying. Figure out what your maximum number of people to die. Just add +1 to that, and we can move the fuck on. One more video, which should take us to the top of the hour. I don't think I'm going to pause this. I haven't pre-watched this one. But this is a German scientist. What up, Carpe? Choosing who gets to die by any criteria is eugenics. Let's don't do that. 100%. Right? Like, it's that simple. And don't, every person who doesn't say that everyone should get food is okay with a certain amount of people dying and a arbitrary metric by which we choose which people get to die. Like, it's that fucking simple. This is a German scientist. They are very smart, and they have something interesting to say about the chatbots that are just chatbots.
Does an artificial...
I should probably swing you guys over to the video view before I go starting the video.
Does an artificially intelligent chatbot understand what it's chatting about? A year ago, I'd have answered this question with clearly not. It's just a turbocharged autocomplete, or a stochastic parrot, as people more eloquent than me have put it, though for all I know, they too might be chatbots. But I've now arrived at the conclusion that the AIs that we use today do understand what they're doing, if not very much of it. I'm not saying this just to be controversial. I actually believe it, I believe, though I have a feeling I might come to regret this video. I got hung up on this question not because I care so much about chatbots, but because it echoes the often made claim that no one understands quantum mechanics. But if we can use quantum mechanics, then doesn't that mean that we understand it, at least to some extent? And consequently, if an AI can use language, then doesn't that mean it understands it, at least to some extent? What do we mean by understanding? Does ChatGPT understand quantum mechanics? And will AI soon be conscious? That's what we'll talk about today. The question whether a computer program understands what it's doing certainly isn't new. In 1980, the American philosopher John Searle argued that the answer is no, using a thought experiment that's become known as the Chinese room. Searle imagines himself in a windowless room with a rule book and a Dropbox. If someone drops him a note written in Chinese, he looks up the symbols in his rule book. The rule book gives him an English translation, which he returns as an answer through a slit in the door, no doubt drawing on the everyday experience of a professor of philosophy.
Just smoke the weed, kids.
Searle argues that the person outside the room might believe that there's someone inside who understands Chinese. But really, he still doesn't understand a word of it. He's just following the rules he's been given. Searle argues that a computer program works like that, without any true understanding, just following the rules. There are two standard objections that people bring forward against Searle's argument. One is that the system which understands Chinese isn't just the person inside the room, but the person including the rulebook. So saying that the person doesn't understand Chinese might be correct, but doesn't answer the question, because in Searle's analogy, the person alone doesn't represent the computer program. Another objection is that it might well be correct that Searle and his rulebook don't understand Chinese, but that's because the input is so limited. Language lacks the physical information that we have learned to associate with words. A software that had the same physical information could develop understanding as we do. Unless, of course, we live in a computer simulation, in which case you can file complaints using the contact form in the bottom right corner of your frontal lobe. I think both of these objections miss the point, but before I explain that, I want to introduce you to the quantum room. Quantum mechanics works pretty much like Searle's Chinese room. It's a rule book, a set of equations with instructions for how to use them.
Yeah, I apologize if that, like, as I said, I didn't pre-watch this, but, like, yeah, maybe it'll stop.
You give me a question, I look into my rule book that I keep in my windowless room, and I return an answer to you through the slit in the door. Do I understand quantum mechanics? Searle would probably argue no. Indeed, for the most part, physicists today aren't even in the room, because who wants to spend their time sitting in a windowless room with a Dropbox when they can instead sit in a windowless room with a laser? No, we're now the ones putting a question into the Dropbox, so to speak, by feeding it into a computer. The computer crunches the numbers and returns an answer. Do we understand those answers? Have we gone too far with shut up and calculate? Is the room even there when no one looks? Those are all very interesting questions, but let's not get carried away. We were trying to talk about chatbots, so let's have a look at those. Today's language-generating models are somewhat more sophisticated than just lookup tables like Searle imagined. And what better way is there to explain how they work than asking one itself?
Language-generating models, like me, are built using deep learning techniques, specifically a type of neural network. These models are trained on large amounts of text data, such as books, articles, and websites, and learn to generate language by identifying patterns and relationships between words and phrases. When generating language, the model takes an initial input, such as a prompt or a question, and uses the patterns it has learned to generate a response. The generated text is not simply copied from the training data, but rather the model uses the patterns it has learned to create new, original text.
Well, that was not awkward at all. But yes, neural networks indeed learn similar to how humans learn. They don't just memorize input, they identify patterns and extrapolate them. They still have many differences to the human brain, at least at the moment. Most importantly, the neurons in a neural network are themselves part of the algorithm and not physical as they are in the human brain. And the human brain has a lot more structure with parts specialized for particular purposes. But neural networks do capture some aspects of how humans learn. And that brings us to the first important point when it comes to the question of understanding. Suppose you have children in elementary school and have them memorize the multiplication tables up to 10. If you want to test whether they understood multiplication, you ask them something that wasn't on the tables. We want to test whether they have identified the pattern and can use it on something else. If you're in the Chinese room with a long list of examples, you can't answer a question that isn't on the list. This is indeed not what anyone means by understanding, so I'd say Searle is right on that account, but this is not what neural networks do. Neural networks do instead exactly what we mean by understanding when we apply it to humans. They extract the pattern and apply it to something they haven't seen before. But this brings up another question. How do you know that that's what it's doing? If you ask a child to multiply two numbers, how do you know they haven't just memorized the result? Well, you don't. If you want to know whether...
And this is one of those things between, like, if you're a parent, right, like, you did the transition between old math and various kinds of new math, right? The Common Core and that kind of thing, and the way that math is taught now. When I learned math, there was a lot of kind of just memorizing the tables, and it took longer to see the additional patterns, I think, right? Like the way that multiplying 9 works, that if you multiply 9 by a number, whatever your product is, you can add, those 2 digits together and it will come up with 9. So it has an included verifier of whether or not you got the answer correct. And I thought that was really cool. And other aspects. The biggest one that I still have to like pause and think about multiplying is when I deal with 7s. I have a difficulty with 7s, and I always go back to 7 times 7 because I know that is 49, and then I add or subtract 7s until I get to the number that I'm trying to get to. Like that kind of thing. Like it's weird. Like that's how my brain works. By having a better understanding of how numbers work rather than what the correct answer is, our children are better equipped to use numbers and understand what they are doing as opposed to just getting the answer right. And this is my reaction to anyone who objects to Common Core and does the simple answer meme videos that you see, because they are, they're boomering the shit out of this.
Someone or something understands, looking at the input and output isn't enough. You could always produce the output by a lookup table rather than with a system that has learned to identify patterns. And you can well understand something without producing any output, like you might understand this video without any output other than maybe the occasional frown. I'd therefore say that what we mean by understanding something is the ability to create a useful model of the thing we're trying to understand. The model is something I have in my head that I can ask questions about the real thing, and that it's useful means it has to be reasonably correct. It captures at least some properties of the real thing. In mathematical terms, you might say there's an isomorphism, a one-to-one map between the model and the real thing. I have a model, for example, for cows. Cows stand on meadows, have 4 legs, and sometimes go moo. If you pull in the right place, milk comes out. Not a particularly sophisticated model, I admit, but I'll work on it once cows start watching YouTube. Understanding, then, is something that happens inside a system. You can probe parts of this understanding with input-output tests, but that alone can't settle the question. When we're talking about neural networks, however, we actually know they're not lookup tables because we've programmed them and trained them. So we can be pretty sure they actually must have a model of the thing they've been trained for, somewhere in their neural weights. In fact, at this moment in the history of mankind, we can be more confident that neural nets understand something than your average first grader, because for all we can tell, the first graders just ask a chatbot. Let's then look at the question of who understands what and why. We have a model of the human body in our brain. This allows us to understand what effects our movements will have, how humans move in general, and which parts belong where. We notice immediately if something is off. But if you train an AI on 2-dimensional images, it doesn't automatically map those images onto a 3D model. This is why it'll sometimes create weird things, like people with half a leg or 3 arms or something like that. This, for example, is Midjourney trying to show a person tying their shoelaces. They look kind of right because it's what the AI was trained to do, to produce an image that looks kind of right, but they don't actually capture the real thing. If you take understanding to mean that it has a model of what's going on, then these AIs almost certainly understand the relation between shadows and lights. But does it know that shadows and light are created by electromagnetic radiation bouncing off or being absorbed by 3-dimensional bodies? It can't, because it never got that information. You can instead give an AI a 3D model and train.
And there are people who don't know that light is electromagnetic waves bouncing off an object and reflecting far retinas. Like, it's not that different.
Train it to match images to that 3D model. This is basically how deepfakes work. And in this case, I'd say that the AI actually does partly understand the motion of certain body parts. The issue with chatbots is more complicated because language is much more loosely tied to reality than videos or photographs. Language is a method that humans have invented to exchange information about these models that we have in our own heads. Written language is, moreover, a reduced version of spoken language. It does capture some essence of reality in relations between words, and if you train a neural network on that, it'll learn those relations, but a lot of information will be missing. Take the sentence, "What goes up must come down." That's, for reasonably common initial conditions, a statement about Newton's law of gravity. Further text analysis might tell you that by down we mean towards the ground, and that the ground is a planet called Earth, which is a sphere, and so on. From that alone, you may have no idea what any of these words mean, but you know how they are related. And indeed, if you ask ChatGPT what happens when you throw a stone into the air, it'll tell you the blandly obvious in several flawlessly correct paragraphs. But a language model can't do more than try to infer relations between words because it didn't get any other data. This is why ChatGPT is ridiculously bad at anything that requires, for example, understanding spatial relationships, like latitude. I asked it whether Windsor, UK is further north or south than Toronto, Canada, and it told me,
Windsor is located at approximately 51.5 degrees north latitude, while Toronto is located at approximately 43.7 degrees north latitude. Therefore, Toronto is further north than Windsor.
It'll quote the latitudes correctly, but draw the exactly wrong conclusion. It's a funny mistake because it'd be easy to fix by equipping it with a three-dimensional model of planet Earth. But it doesn't have such a model. It only knows relations between words. For the same reason, ChatGPT has some rather elementary misunderstandings about quantum mechanics. But let me ask you first. Imagine you have two entangled particles and you separate them. One goes left and the other goes right, but like couples after a fight, they're still linked whether they want to or not. That they are entangled means that they share a measurable property, but you don't know which particle has which share. It could be, for example, that they each either have spin plus or minus 1, and the spin has to add up to 0.
Let her cook. We've still got a bunch of video left.
If you measure them, either the one going left has spin plus 1 and the one going right minus 1, or the other way around. And if you measure one particle, you know immediately what the spin of the other particle is. But let's say you don't measure them right away. Instead, you first perform an operation on one of the particles. This is physics, so when I say operation, I don't mean heart surgery, but something a little more sophisticated. For example, you flip its spin. Such an operation is not a measurement because it doesn't allow you to determine what the spin is. If you do this on one particle, what happens to the other particle? If you don't know the answer, that's perfectly fine, because you can't answer the question from what I've told you. The correct answer is that nothing happens to the other particle. This is obvious if you know how the mathematics works, because if you flip the spin, that operation only acts on one side. But it's not obvious from a verbal description of quantum mechanics, which is why it's a common confusion in the popular science press. Because of that, it's a confusion that ChatGPT is likely to have too. And indeed, when I asked it that question, it got it wrong. So I'd recommend you don't trust ChatGPT on quantum mechanics until it speaks fluent LaTeX. But ask it any word-related question and it shines. One of the best uses for ChatGPT that I have found is English grammar or word use questions. As I was working on this video, for example, I was wondering whether Dropbox is actually a word or just the name of an app. How am I supposed to know? I've never heard anyone use the word for anything besides the app. if you type this question into your search engine of choice, the only thing you get is a gazillion hits explaining how Dropbox, the app, works. Ask the question to ChatGPT and it'll tell you that, yes, Dropbox is a word that English native speakers will understand. For the same reason, ChatGPT is really good at listing pros and cons for certain arguments, because those are words which stand in relation to the question. It's also good at finding technical terms and keywords from rather vague verbal descriptions. For example, I asked it, what's the name for this effect where things get shorter when you move at high speed? It explained,
the name of the effect you are referring to is length contraction or Lorentz contraction. It is a consequence of the theory of special relativity.
Which is perfectly correct. But don't ask it how English words are pronounced. It makes even more mistakes than I do. What does this tell us about whether we understand quantum mechanics? I've argued that understanding can't be inferred from the relation between input and output alone. The relevant question is instead whether a system has a model of what it's trying to understand, a model that it can use to explain what's going on. And I'd say this is definitely the case for physicists who use quantum mechanics. I have a model inside my head for how quantum mechanics works. It's a set of equations that I have used many times that I know how to apply and use to answer questions, and I'm sure the same is the case for other physicists. The problem with quantum mechanics is that those equations do not correspond to words we use in everyday language. Most of the problems we see with understanding quantum mechanics come from the impossibility of expressing the equations in words, at least in English. For all I know, you can do it in Chinese. Maybe that explains why the Chinese are so good with quantum technologies. It is, of course, possible to just convert equations into words by reading them out, but we normally don't do that. What we do in science communication is kind of a mixture with metaphors and attempts to explain some of the maths, and that conveys some aspects of how the equations work, but if you take the words too literally, they stop making sense. But equations aren't necessary for understanding. You can also gain understanding of quantum mechanics by games or apps that visualize the behavior of the equations, like those that I talked about in an earlier video. That too will allow you to build a model inside your head for how quantum mechanics works. This is why I'd also say that if we use computer simulations and visualizations in science, especially for complex problems, that doesn't mean we've given up on understanding. Visualizing the behavior of a system and probing it and seeing what it does is another way of building a model in your head. There is another reason why physicists say they don't understand quantum mechanics, which is that it's internally inconsistent. I've talked about this a few times before and it's somewhat off topic here, so I don't want to get into this again. Let me just say that there are problems with quantum mechanics that go beyond the difficulty of expressing it in words. So where will the AI boom lead us? First of all, it's rather foreseeable that before long we'll all have a personalized AI that'll offer anything from financial advice to relationship counseling. The more you can afford to pay, the better it'll be, and the free version will suggest you marry the Prince of Nigeria. Of course, people are going to complain it'll destroy the world and all, but it'll happen anyway, because when has the risk of destroying the world ever stopped us from doing anything if there was money to make with it? The best and biggest AIs will be those of big companies and governments, and that's almost guaranteed to increase wealth disparities. We're also going to see YouTube flooded by human avatars and other funky AI-generated visuals because it's much faster and cheaper than getting a human to read text or go out and film that old-fashioned thing called reality. But I don't think this trend will last long because it'll be extremely difficult to make money with it. The easier it becomes to create artificial footage, the more people will look for authenticity. So that stupid German accent might eventually actually be good for something. If nothing else, it makes me difficult to simulate. Will AI eventually become conscious? Of course, there's nothing magic about the human brain, it's just a lot of connections that process a lot of information. If we can be conscious, computers can do it too, and it will happen eventually. How will we know? Like understanding, you can't probe consciousness just by observing what goes in and comes out. If you'd really want to know, you'd have to look what's going on inside. And at the moment, that wouldn't help, because we don't know how to identify consciousness in any case. Basically, we can't answer the question. But personally, I find this extremely interesting, because we're about to create an intelligent species that'll be very different from our own. And if we're dumb enough to cause our own extinction this way, then I guess that's what we deserve. Meanwhile, enjoy the ride. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
I hope that also helped you have a better understanding. Like, if you think that the chat doesn't understand language, at least to some extent, it is real easy to project on that AI that it's just whatever. It is more challenging to take a step back and allow for the possibility that your understanding of what understanding is flawed, and that you need to do some work and update your model with the latest data. Those are your options. It's like, you can pretend that it's not happening, or you can try and make your model better. All right, our boy isn't online yet. I have a super short video? I do. Y'all like Hank? I like Hank. Did he just go live?
Good morning, John. So it's starting to seem a little bit like this fun.
Hank also thinks it's very important that we have these, not that Hank, that we have these discussions now, right? And you know, my philosophy of these things is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. And that's why we are having these conversations right now.
Good morning, John. So it's starting to seem a little bit like this fun little AI thing that we're doing is going to be about 30 to 40 different giant AI things over the next 3 months to 5 years. And I'm not really ready for that. So to try and get ready, here's one thing that I've been thinking about. Fact number 1. Mongooses are native to India, and they're weaselly little carnivores that chew up anything that's like small enough for them to get their teeth into. Fact number 2. When Europeans arrived and then began to colonize Hawaii, they brought with them rats. And those rats were a problem for a bunch of reasons, but specific to this story, they were a problem for the European colonizers' sugar plantations. And so somebody got the bright idea into their heads to bring mongooses to Hawaii so that they would eat the rats, because mongooses eat rats. And the mongooses did not do a particularly good job of controlling the rat population, but they did a great job of eating a lot of native species that had never seen a mammalian carnivore before. An introduced species that is able to take root and change the ecology of an area, that's an invasive species. And if you...
Shut up. I mean, you're technically correct, which is the best kind of correct, but by the same token, like, if I could travel back and do it 19 years ago, then I could just travel 20 years ago.
Introduce another species to try and control that invasive species, that's called biological control. And there are tons of stories of biological control going very wrong. Fact number 3. Meta's large language model artificial intelligence thing called Llama was leaked, which means that there is almost definitely a teenager somewhere in Orlando, Florida, who has downloaded it and is running it on their home machine and teaching it to behave however that teen wants it to behave. And I'm only focusing on that teenager in Orlando right now because I would have been that teenager in Orlando if this had happened when I was a teenager. Ecosystems are incredibly complicated, and it is very difficult to know what effect a change will have on the rest of the ecosystem. And the only thing that I can think of that might be more complicated than an ecosystem is a human society. Now, this is a bit of a leap, and I don't love taking leaps, but it might be that a good way to imagine part of what's about to happen is that we're about to live in a society with a bunch of invasive species in it. There are no native mammals in Hawaii, except for one very cute bat. And so far in human history, there have been no counterfeit humans that can't do all of the things that humans can do, but everything they do looks human to us, who can have goals and work in the world in ways that we can't predict to achieve those goals. What does a society look like when it has those entities roving around in it, and when those entities are controlled by everyone from that teenager in Orlando to Vladimir Putin? I don't know. But I think that we can take some lessons from the world of ecology. Like, there are some ecosystems that are more fragile. Ecosystems that are more isolated and have less diversity are at greater risk. And there are some demographics and groups in our societies that maybe have fewer immunities built up to deal with rapid change. That is a thing to be aware of. This isn't going to affect everybody equally. And also, here's the thing. Now, we have gotten a lot better at things like biological control. We look very carefully for really specific controls on really specific target species. And in the last 30 or 40 years, there's actually been lots of biological control programs that you haven't heard about because they've been successful. We made a whole SciShow about this. You should watch it. It's good. And there are lots of people in artificial intelligence right now working very hard to say, okay, let's not be that random guy in Hawaii who ruined everything for everyone. Let's think a little bit. Let's try and understand what the implications of this are. This can be done in better ways and in worse ways, but right now it feels like a lot of people are just thinking, hey, this is inevitable. It might as well be me. So fact number 4, in ecology and everything else, the only thing we definitely know is that things are going to change, but those changes don't come linearly. There are periods where there is less change and periods of rapid change. And it's starting to feel kind of obvious that both for society and ecology, the next couple of decades are gonna be kind of the fast times. So if nothing else, get ready for that. John, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Hi.
If you don't follow Hank Green, you should follow Hank Green. He has an entertaining way of explaining science to people. His brother John, I found during watching Crash Course. Crash Course is also an excellent way to learn stuff. Their world history series is how I taught world history to my son. It's entertaining, it's cartoons, it's short little, and it's good. We're going to rate Paradigm. I appreciate everybody who came through. Tomorrow we should be talking about the way that the brain works, and we are going to be talking with K-Pars. You may have seen them in various chats. So I look forward to that, being able to talk to someone who understands the science of brains to give me a little more details, and we could talk about the way the AI works, and that's similar to a brain, the way the brain works, and it's going to be a good time. So make sure you keep showing up, because I love teaching you, and you love learning, and drink some water, eat some food, take your meds. Doggy loves you, and so do I. I'll see you in the shift.